I don't have check bags.
What's up, Shane?
So Mikey,
Okay. So okay, Theo, I'll recognize him if he's here. It's Theo. Okay. This we have a proclamation for, or what, it's, okay. It's for. Oh, okay, but the chief will be giving that, right? Oh, okay, okay. Is there anything else that changed from here?
So, call this time.
Okay, so that is E. Okay. Oh, okay, okay. All right, I'll go by this one. I just kind of highlight them just so I can eyeball them.
Oh, no. Yeah, pretty much.
Thank you.
They don't know what's colors. That's great.
So nice at the beginning of the meetings, we have such full
Yeah,
houses and then
right.
later we're staring at one person.
Or at each other.
Huh?
At each other.
Dan's the best.
Okay, Victor is,
Victor's online. Yes.
I think I did.
No, you didn't, but that's fine. Okay.
I have two at home.
Okay.
We're good.
Finished, so continue the meeting.
Sounds good.
How far apart are they?
Sounds good. Sounds good. You're gonna miss a good part.
About 20 months apart. Maybe just like, yeah.
I can wait till the agenda. Agenda item? Okay, so then, well, see,
It's the yellow
yeah. Thanks. man.
on here.
don't
Do
see
you have the other sign-in sheet, Erica, the ones that are specific to the items?
Thank you. Or yes, for a specific agenda.
Sure.
Yeah, they.
Okay, points.
Waiting for anyone? No, else, we're ready?
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Bravo.
I think your mic is
Here.
off here.
I think, are your mics on?
This one too.
No, they're not.
Hearing mine either.
Yes, it is.
Test 1, 2, test. Now.
Okay. All right, let's start over.
Yes.
Call a roll, please.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Here.
Councilman Santeen,
Here.
Councilman Behet,
Here.
Councilman Vasquez.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
You. If you are able, please rise and join us in the invocation by Councilman Behet.
We pray this evening for the agenda set forth before us and ask that we be granted the ability to work together in harmony when there is honest disagreement and dissent. We ask for the strength to speak up when given the opportunity to speak and the patience to listen receptively and empathically when it's time to listen. We ask for the wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues that we encounter. Presidents, servants, it's our responsibility to serve the common good of all the residents of our cities. Amen.
To the flag, the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone to our March 11th City Council meeting. It's nice to always start the meeting seeing so many happy faces. And also we welcome anyone that's joining us virtually. So we're going to get started with our awards and presentations. And our first award is honoring Police Sergeant Gary Fellers for his retirement after 25 years and 8 months of dedicated service to our city.
Evening, council, city manager. Come on, get up here.
Dio, can you put the mic closer?
Sergeant Fetters began his career here in June 1998. He's one of the few officers left that I worked with in the 90s. He worked the road for some time, later on became a detective, and then was promoted to sergeant, where he did excellent. We're losing a good man and a good officer. Enjoy retirement, my friend, and good luck to you. Yes, you do.
Even the mic is never a good idea, to be honest. It's like, it could be a roast. I look around the room, all the guys, girls here in uniform, born after 98. Hold up your hand for me. After 98.
After 98.
Huh? Okay, not as many as I thought, so I don't feel too bad. I'm like, okay, how about up here? Anybody? No?
Absolutely.
68. We're, okay, never mind. So I'd like to thank everybody that's here today. Speaking of back when I started here, Will Fowler, he don't look a day over 70 now. Wife, Adrian, I've known since I've been here, going back to 98. That's about it. That's any closer and you'd have to pay me, I think. But okay. It's been a heck of a run. One thing I can tell you, I did do very well. I think I represented the city in the uniform, the badge, about as well as anybody could. So I leave here with that. And knowing that I leave good representatives here in my wake that'll carry on as I did. So that is about all you can ask for. And I'd like to thank my daughters for being here, especially my daughter Chelsea right there looking lovely. She came down from Palm City. And I think we're going to go have dinner now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Sergeant, we have something for you
Wait, hold on.
from the council.
Yeah, the FOP was absolutely.
Yeah, I'll say.
Stand and
Yeah,
get up with the.
yeah, yeah.
Back in the day, it used to be.
We're gonna stand back here. Sore.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Fetters.
Small token as a memory of 25 years. If you think back to 25, well, some of us, I know, some of you can't remember that long, but most of us, if you think back 25 years, Miami Springs, what a different city we are now. And I would say definitely doing better. We keep improving, and like I always say, yes, the best years are still to come. So Sergeant, for all of your time serving us, I can't even imagine the experiences that you had in 25 years. We're extremely grateful for your service, appreciative, and we hope you'll stay and visit with us. Are you moving away or are you staying here?
I'm good.
Far, far away.
Give it a cozy corner. And I paid my cozy corner for a long time, so. Thank you so
I'll let
much.
you know when I'm there. Enjoy.
Do you want to take a photo with your family? Let's
Yeah.
have
Yes.
With the chief? Yes, Ross, you're really good.
Staying up here. Okay.
And let's
be
get
good.
one with all.
I wanted those two especially.
Go on, come on, come on.
You know, get two hours.
Yes, 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 yes. Go in the back.
Perfect. I would like to invite all the police department, officer sergeant, head right here.
All the short
Hey,
guys.
You got the.
I can see how they're gonna mess them.
You get back here before.
Yes. Yes. Is that Mike? Okay.
Recognize.
Here.
I'm sorry I moved you over, chief.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
move it back. We got two more to go.
Okay, so our next agenda item, this is very exciting. We have three wonderful presentations or ceremonies for the police department. And our next one is the promotion ceremony by Chief Deal of Police Officer Brian Nickerson to Police Sergeant.
Like myself, Brian is a born and raised current resident of Miami Springs. He attended Springview Elementary, Blessed Trinity, well, I won't hold that against you, and Miami Springs Senior High School, graduated in 2012. He became a public service aide here with us in 2013. Then we sent him to the police academy in 2014. Graduated in 2014. He has since become an officer in charge, where he works as in the place of a sergeant. He has been awarded the Officer of the Month award 4 times and also Officer of the Year 1 time.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Brian Nickerson. Steve.
Hey, thank you, Chief, all the officers and the administration that came out, and friends and family. I appreciate you guys. Also, Sergeant Feathers. He was the first person I rode with when I was a PSA back when I was 19 years old. So it's a bittersweet moment to see you from the beginning, my beginning of becoming a sergeant. So I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Sergeant Nickerson, thank you for serving and protecting the citizens and the community of Miami Springs. We're greatly appreciative. And now we have a promotion ceremony, again by Chief Deal, of Police Lieutenant Frank Perez to Police Captain.
Lieutenant Perez began his career here with the Miami Springs Police Department as a police dispatcher in 2002. He went on to go to the police academy in 2004, graduated in 2005. He was promoted to sergeant in 2011 and later promoted by former Chief Guzman in 2016 to the rank of lieutenant. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Frank Perez. Your daughter. Where's your daughter?
Everybody go up. I got you. I got you.
You go.
Congratulations, Captain. Thank you for serving and protecting our residents in our city. Captain, would you like to say anything?
First of all, I'm extraordinarily grateful for the opportunity that's been given to me by Chief Deal. I will do everything in my power to make sure that he does not regret it. But I also wanted to thank all my loved ones, all my family, all my friends. I would not have been able to accomplish anything that I have accomplished in this life without their constant love and support. And I feel extraordinarily blessed for that. And also thank you to all of the people that I work with. It's because of them that we've been able to do as much as we have done, and we continue to do every day. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Captain. Congratulations.
Whoever, just, yeah. Good.
Works here, let's go.
No,
Not at all.
we love it.
Está bien.
Thank you to everyone in our police department, at all levels. Our community is deeply grateful for your service and protection. Okay, our next agenda item is, we are proclaiming the month of March as Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And I wanted to give a little background as mayor, I get often reached out from organizations asking us to proclaim, this and that, and we can't do everything, but there are sometimes certain issues that are timely, that need awareness, that need attention, and in a small way, proclaiming proclaiming an item, giving a proclamation for an item is a way to provide awareness, to bring issues that are sometimes kind of shade issues out into the open, so that we know that there's resources for them also, because just as important as recognizing that there's a problem is acknowledging that there are resources available to that person and making all of us aware of how we can help. So this month, we are proclaiming the month of May
March.
as Problem Gambling Awareness Month. And I want to read the proclamation. And if you've kept up lately, this is something that's come to my attention within the past year or something, as gaming has become more popular, more widely accepted. It's no longer, a dark casino, a smoky casino or something. It's sports betting and, and online. And so it's become very acceptable, fun, enjoy, something that, we talk about openly. There's also been a very significant rise in problem gambling and gambling addiction, particularly in young people that see this as, I started doing this as fun, and very quickly it can become a slippery slope where gambling becomes a significant problem. So we are proclaiming March Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and I'm going to read the proclamation because I do want to bring attention to this. Whereas problem gambling is a serious public health issue affecting 1 to 3% of the general adult population, and often results in personal, financial, familial, legal, and other costs, including a high risk of suicide. And whereas it is estimated that over 200,000 Florida adults of diverse age, race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status suffer from past year gambling problems, and 700,000 more are at risk of developing such difficulties, constituting 4.7% of the adult population ages 18 and older. And where it is further important to note that these statistics do not account for youth who are increasingly and deceptively exposed to gambling concepts and are at an increased risk for developing gambling-related problems. Whereas it is also essential to recognize problem gambling as a societal issue, with 8 to 10 additional people adversely impacted by every problem gambler. And the point with that is it's not just the problem gambler, it's their family, their children, their business that suffers. Where was I? With 8 to 10, increasing the affected population by an estimated additional 1.5 million individuals who suffer the consequences of problem gambling, with conservative projected social cost amounting to more than $9 billion nationally each year. And whereas problem gambling is treatable for those who seek help, which minimizes the harm to Floridians and to the state as a whole. And whereas the Florida Council on Compulsive Gambling's public awareness campaign provides an opportunity to educate the public, policymakers, educators, businesses, mental health, and criminal justice professionals, and others about the potential adverse effects of gambling, as well as social, legal, financial, and emotional impacts and available supports. And whereas free referrals to problem gambling resources and supports, including to licensed and certified treatment providers, self-help support groups, an online program for problem gambling, and the FCCG's Floridians Problem Gambling Association by calling or texting 888-ADMIT-IT. And whereas any individual, professional, or other organizations dedicated to assisting those in need can participate in raising awareness and preventing problem gambling by promoting the statewide confidential, toll-free, and 24-hour problem gambling helpline, 888-ADMIT-IT. And whereas the City of Miami Springs can demonstrate its support in addressing problem gambling by raising public awareness through the declaration of proclamation of the month of March 2024 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in the City of Miami Springs. Now therefore, I, Maria Puente Mitchell, Mayor of the City of Miami Springs, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2024 as Problem Gambling Awareness Month in the City of Miami Springs. And I urge all citizens to join me in this special observance. So thank you so much for allowing me to read this to you. I hope that that we do raise awareness to this, particularly in our young, who are the most at risk of, it's a different concept now of something that's so accepted, and by the time it becomes a problem, they can be quite deeply affected in their family also. Do we have someone here from this organization, Erica? Okay, all right, we'll get this to them. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item, and this is our Yard of the Month Award. And this month, for March 2024, the Yard of the Month is 289 Shadow Way, the home of our longtime residents, Theo and Diana. Are you here?
Theo's here.
Hi, Theo. Do you want to come up? Okay. You have a very diverse yard. I know you're always planting and out there. Come on up. You want to say something? Well, do you want to say something about your yard? I know you're very knowledgeable and
Thank you. Thank you to the city for this award. It means a lot to our family, especially to my wife. We spend and both of my sons, especially my youngest son who has autism. He earned a horticulture degree from Miami-Dade College, and the yard, it's his world. So in the back, we have all sorts of things back there. And when you see the gate open, all of you are welcome to pop in, and we can talk plants.
I'm gonna go look because I talk plants actually.
Always welcome.
and I want to say he's serious about that. You can
No, I'm
stop by
serious.
and he
I'm
loves to
serious.
show you
I know
his yard.
exactly where you are in that corner. Thank you, Theo.
I want to remind everyone, the address is 289 Shadow Way. So this month. Be sure to stop by, drive by, but in this case, normally I say just drive by. In this case, I know that Theo would love for you to stop and visit, so please do. Thank you, Theo. Can you get the councilwoman also?
Job, Dan.
We'll touch base so that we'll see.
Okay, we move now to open forum. We have several people signed up for open forum to speak at open forum. I just want to remind everyone that open forum is a means for anyone to speak to us, to the council about anything that you want to speak about. It doesn't have to be on the agenda. And we're all ears. During open forum, we listen and you have our undivided attention. It is literally one-way communication. We listen, we don't respond, but you have all of us at one time hearing your concerns, whatever you want to talk to. If you want to discuss something further afterwards, please reach out. You can reach out to any of us individually or to our city manager, city clerk, and they will assist you further with the issue. Okay, so please leave your comments, maintain your comments. I'm going to ask for 2 minutes. Erica will time you, and when you hear the little ringer, it's time for the next guest. Okay, so we're starting with Stephen Owens.
Hey, good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Stephen Owens. I'm born and raised here in Miami Springs, and now I'm raising my own kids in Miami Springs. And I brought my daughter, Bianca, with me. I'm here to speak out in support of Match Point Tennis. I think it's a great tennis program. It's a vibrant youth program, youth community program. And if you don't believe me, go by the tennis courts any evening, weekday evening, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And you'll see for yourself. Just sit down there for a minute or just listen, sit on the park bench, listen to the kids playing tennis, and you'll see it. And listen to the coaches too and how they interact with the children. They really care for the children. I think we need to keep this program. This is a good program. Just the warm-up drills, everything, it's great. And as a matter of fact, it's not just the kids in Miami Springs, kids from all over the city come to join this tennis program. So it's a good tennis program. As far as this, contract being up for bid and other proposals being made to you all, I know that, you do have difficult decisions to make, but this is an established program that has been here for 15 years, to my understanding. And it's been built up. So if you're going to make any changes to it, my suggestion would be go back to the old way of having city employees in Parks and Recreation run the tennis courts if there's an issue with budgetary issues or whatever. But another point that I made last time is that every single Parks and Recreation facility has been rebuilt since 2010, except for the tennis courts. And if you go to the tennis courts, you go into the bathroom, you go into the office, you go into the racquetball courts, you'll see it's from the mid 1900s. And yes, they crack, they have, so the only way to redo it would be like, revamping kind of like what you're doing to the golf course where you dig it out and you put the limestone fill and then you level it again. But I think that saving a buck on, contracting to a different company for the youth tennis program is not the way to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Okay, next we have Manny Fabian.
Good evening. I'm going to read as quickly as possible to stay under the 2 minutes. Honorable Mayor Mitchell and City Council members, as previously informed, it is with bittersweet emotions that I inform you of my plans to retire. I would like to thank you for your trust bestowed upon me and by previous administrations. I hope that I have lived up to the community's expectations. Since 2008, we have seen hundreds of kids come through our program and learn the game of tennis. More importantly, my wife and I have been blessed to be a part of their lives. We hope we have helped them make them better human beings. The bonds with these kids and with the broader racket sports community are what we will miss the most. I'd like to recognize and thank Omar Luna, Lazio Garabao, and their staffs for making my job easier. Their responsiveness and professionalism is what public servants are and what makes private-public partnerships succeed. When the city renewed Match Point's contract in 2021, I was asked by the city council to ensure that when I retired, I'd find someone to continue the community-based programming and the residents were accustomed to. Rather than turn my keys in at the end of the month and sail into the sunset, I took that request very seriously. I look for someone like-minded, strong sense of family and community, a passion for tennis and tennis expertise. I was fortunate to meet Brad Mixon and his wife at a USPTA conference a few years ago. His tennis background and experience far exceeds what I had back in 2008 when you guys took a chance on me. He also has extensive pickleball knowledge. After personally vetting him, I brought him on a trial basis in 22. His work ethic and passion proved to be unparalleled. Parents and kids alike embraced him as he fell in love with the community and its residents. I made him a partner in January 23, and he has managed day-to-day operations since then, with me looking over his shoulder. He has done a commendable job, especially when navigating the challenges of bringing pickleball to the community. He demonstrated a willingness to listen, make changes, and ensure a dynamic racket sports community. As you know, consensus is a tricky thing to find. Brad has handled it with professionalism. I am confident that he will improve on what we built along with Silvio and Tomas, who've been with me for years. I guess I'm done.
If you're,
Okay.
You should email that to us, Manny.
Okay.
thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Tom Webb. And for those that don't know, Tom Webb is a former council member. So he's very familiar with this.
Kids being born in 98. I think I got off the council 45 years ago. I have shoes older than they are. I still wear them, you know. Anyway, you know why I'm here. I sent you guys a letter. I appreciate your time. What was that?
Just kidding.
Time's up. We'd like, Roland and I have been talking about this when Doug Orr passed away. We'd like to take the Prince Field and have it Prince Field at Douglas Orr Park. He was on the rec board for years. I don't know how many years, 20 years maybe. A lot of the kids in town that have nice houses and whatnot went to work for him. If not, they probably would have headed to jail. I mean, he's done so much for this community. He, on his own money, his own time, he irrigated the Peavy Field, also East Drive Park, which is Stafford Park. Also the playground that's at Prince Field and the golf course. He did those bathrooms on the golf course, his own money, his own time. Speaking of which, the golf course probably wouldn't have it if it wasn't for him, John Cavalier, and a group of us that got together, said, what are we going to do? City of Miami was selling it to the school board. Can you imagine 4 or 5 more schools there? And he was instrumental in helping stop that. And we have it today. It's probably our finest jewel we have. So I appreciate your time, and please, I think that's the least we can do for him.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Roland Rivero.
Yeah, so
Well, we can't, you have, Roland,
Come on up.
you need to,
you might as
also the reason for speaking into the mic is that the people at home can hear us and it's recorded as part of the meeting, the official meeting. And Roland Rivero is our former Public Works Director for the city many years ago when we first moved to Miami
Looking
Springs.
at all these mayors, and I first started way before Bob Hurt, and I'd go down and I said, he thinks he's old. You know how you figure how old I am.
I think that's one of the nice things about Miami Springs. There's always a connection of,
Oh
you know,
my
whoever's here has
And
so
good
much
connection.
history.
And the same as I had with Doug Orr, we were both in the school together. And when I thought of the idea, talked to Tom and some other, your mayor and most of you, is that when I go to the University of Miami game, when I go to the University of Miami, they have
Mark Light Stadium at Alex Rodriguez Park. And the only reason they did that is because Alex gave a lot of money. Now, I coached Alex way back when he was at Westminster. So I thought of that and I brought it up to the mayor and some of you, and we're hoping that we can get this done. And naming it, you know, Prince Field at Douglas Orr Park. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list, Trina Aguilar.
Put this down. Hello, I'm Trina Aguila, and I am a parent of a young man that he's now 13. He's been attending the Match Point Academy tennis program since he was about 5, and has really helped him in his personal journey of, you know, learning how to make friends and, you know, committing to something and putting his all into an activity. It's been such gains you can't even imagine that the growth that I've seen in my child, partly because of Manny and now because of Brad Mixon. And I understand that the name change has occurred. It's now going to be Miami Tennis Pro instead of Match Point Academy. I actually watched the entire review board meeting earlier today, so I noticed that the name had changed. So I want to be in favor. Please consider, I know he's ranked number 2, but please consider bumping him up to number 1 and going ahead with the Miami Tennis Pro company. You won't be sorry.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Trina. Okay, next we have Sean Boer.
All right, I got a lot to say. I'm gonna make it quick, so if I talk fast, I apologize. Okay, hi, my name is Shambu, and I'm back again to speak in support of Brad and the Pro Tennis Company. So I'm here today because I saw that the committee is recommending another company, and I'm here to try to prevent you guys from making a big mistake. First, let's talk about the money. Apparently, the other company's proposal is to do the 30-70 split. I don't know about you guys, but to give up 30% of something you're putting your heart and soul into sounds like a lot, in my opinion. I'm sure they only proposed that because that's what you guys recommended on your RFP, so they could get their foot in the door. Brad's Miami Pro Tennis is a little lower, but at least he's honest and fair. The best advice I was given when I started my business was to do just that, be honest and fair, and that's what you're getting with Brad. No surprises, he cares. The pro shop, the other company mentions they're going to build a new pro shop out of their own pocket. That doesn't make much sense either. Who would build a new building if it's not theirs? If I were them, I would buy land, build a pro shop, and pour a concrete slab, and bam, you've got tennis courts. And you're making 100%. But that's just me. I mean, do we really need a new pro shop anyway? How much revenue is really generated from a pro shop? Most stuff's bought online anyway, and mostly what they sell are snacks and drinks. If they're really serious, I would recommend have them putting money in an escrow account just to see how serious they are about it, not to mention when they plan on doing all this work. Third, so the 30% split and the pro shop, don't you think they'll have to increase rates? Isn't it common sense? Not sure if you know, but on their website, if you have lessons, you have to pay their annual membership fees as well on top of the lessons. Not sure if you guys are aware of that or not. But anyway, that's it. And I wish I had some more time, but I'll let my daughter talk. And I will email you guys the rest of what I've got to say.
Okay, and this is Kelsey Boer.
Match Point as well. She's just a little shy, but they're the girls that I fight for. So keep that in mind.
Hi, Kelsey. You signed up to speak.
You can do it.
My dad did, not me. This is my point of view. This is my point of view of why I think Brad and his team should stay. I would like them to stay because I have been taking lessons at Match Point for more than 5 years. The coaches have improved my tennis game, and if you have trouble with a skill that we're learning, the coaches will take their time and help you with that skill. I really do not want to see Brad, Silvio, and Tomas leave because they have been coaching me since I have joined Match Point. Has also made a substantial impact on myself and other tennis athletes in the community. And my sister had a tennis lesson today, and she had a smile on her face the whole time, and I don't want that to change. That's it.
Thank you.
John, she did better than you did.
Right. Thank you. And Manny, as Councilman Fahed suggested, please email it. I think you've emailed it to us before, or not this statement. Okay, so if you could email it to us so we can see that.
Please do.
Thank you. Okay, so that is it of everyone we have signed up to speak at open forum. Oh, okay. Did you want to speak at?
Yeah, but I can't speak when they talk about
Yes, because you're on. No, if you're signed up for the agenda item, you've signed up on this one. Would you rather speak right now, Mr. Lumpy? Okay, instead of speaking during, okay, if you sign up for the agenda item, then you can speak during then, but we're happy to hear you now.
We live in Miami Springs and we're proud of it. Carlos Lumpe, 181 Hammond Drive. I'm here as well as Tom Webb to speak to this naming of Prince Field to Douglas Orr Park. I very much approve of this. I also approve of this movement of naming private sector Miami Springers, as we did with the naming, the passing last October of the owner of the Cozy Diner. This is a good movement because I do not approve when we name structures or streets or anything by, let's say, a commissioner. When you spend public money, all right, it's not out of your pocket. When you're not taking risk, when you're not a risk taker, it's a whole different world than those of us who are private sector Miami Springers. I approve of this very much. I only found out hours ago about perhaps naming Prince Field with Douglas Orr's name. And I will come more prepared for the second reading. I'm meeting with Wayne Orr next week, and I will have a very long list of what Douglas Orr has done here in Miami Springs. He was the first one to write a check out for so many causes here in Miami Springs. He is a huge employer, a large property owner, or was, I'm sorry, and the ownership of Douglas Orr has changed recently. But as a landlord, I have dealt with all the trades, and my favorite are plumbers. They really are. And it's understated what tradesmen do in our world. And I've always, and I'll close with this, there are no trash jobs. Our world is built by risk takers, and we must value labor from the barn shovel in a barn to the highest disciplines of a brain surgeon.
Thank you,
All
sir.
work is noble and good. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Okay. Rogelio, you're signed up to speak during the agenda item, right? Okay. All right, so that ends our public forum. Thank you to everyone who takes the time to come sign up and speak to us. I know it's short because we have to get on with the agenda, but we're listening. We hear you and it's greatly appreciated. Okay, we'll move to the consent approval of the council minutes for the February 26th meeting.
Motion to approve 6A.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
You hear us? Councilman Vasquez? Do you hear us? If you want, raise your hand. Yes.
You're muted, Victor.
Yes, is okay?
I think that is a yes.
Okay.
was a
Mayor
thumbs
This
Mitchell.
is a yes, this is a no.
That was a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, okay.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting and I am unable to use my right hand. So I'm trying to make the mouse operate with my left hand. Good
Okay.
luck with that. Anyway, aye, yes.
Okay.
And Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. We move to the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item of these 3 consent agenda items that they want to pull to discuss?
There's 2 items.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at an older agenda.
Motion
Okay.
to approve 9A and B.
Any, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
It's pretty simple.
Call a vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes,
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Okay, we move to agenda item 12, other business, and we have 12A is a vote of confidence for the city clerk as required by our city charter.
Motion to approve.
second,
Second. All right, any discussion? I would just like to say that our city clerk is a very hard worker, very dependable, offers suggestions which are very useful, and is always available when I need her. So she definitely has my vote of confidence.
Thank you.
And we're very appreciative to you and your staff.
Thank you.
here.
Call a vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Aye,
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you.
Thank
We
you.
move to a vote of confidence for the city attorney as required by the city charter.
motion to approve.
Second that, 12B.
Discussion? Okay, then I will say to Heidi and all of your staff at Weiss Serota, the firm, I know I reach out to you about all sorts of things constantly, and you and your staff are always available, provide a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate the depth and breadth, and I've said this before, of your firm. Whenever I ask Heidi a question and it's not something that's within her best expertise, she always sets up an appointment with someone else within her firm who specializes in that question so that we can discuss it. And that's really valued by me. So with that,
Let me say something.
yes, sir.
You know me, I like to say things the way a straight shooter about a lot of things. And I want to say the truth. Before I got to this council, so on the other side of the dais, sometimes I wasn't, sometimes I was a little bit critical of things, certain things, because I didn't see it as, you don't get all the information. You think that, well, it doesn't seem like she's fighting for the city on everything. Now that I am on this side, and at least in my tenure here, I could, without hesitation, seeing that you are dedicated to our city and that we come first. And for that reason, I have a vote of confidence for you. You're going.
To the chair.
Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
just get out of the way now instead of dragging the meeting towards the end. So we've come a long way from last year to this year, because I think we all know where that went last year. We've taken a 360 turn in the last year. And at least for me and working with Heidi and Roger, we have taken a different route of communication and interaction and collaboration, which has now allowed me some positivity and more transparency. And I feel much more confident than where we were, and we're working on a lot of items together. And we are doing one-on-one workshops based on city council consensus, which for me is 100% valuable for me to be able to go to your office, sit with you, literally one by one, work on items for a city. I think it's so much more different. So I'm really looking forward to a fresh new start with you. And I know that we're going to do very good things for our city. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? And then we'll call the vote, please.
I'd like to just
Oh,
chime in.
sister.
Sorry, I don't want to be the one left out. I think she knows how much I appreciate what she does, and I think that Weiss Serota serves us admirably, and you're great. Thank you.
Call the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. So we've moved to agenda item 12C, and my glasses. We have Vice Mayor Bravo, who is going to speak about the public right-of-way parking regulations.
Okay, so basically what I kind of touched on top and during the workshop, which wasn't the point of discussion, I'm gonna make it very brief because this is something that we're gonna have to get into more details with when we adjust the whole parking situation as a whole. But I have a really big concern. I know Councilman is bringing up overnight parking and those issues that affect directly retail and commercial areas for the most part. What I'm really looking at here is trying to see if we could get a more regulated, more uniformed approach to our public right-of-way swale parking, because it's become really messy. We have really cars everywhere, all over city property. I don't mind, if we can look at this and maybe work with the multifamily homeowners and see how we can work this out. But I don't think the city is in a position where we have this luxury to just have, whether you're a resident or a visitor, just the parking all over all these multifamily areas is just becoming it's just messy. We have dirt, we have people, we don't even know who's living there really. We have the over occupancy issues. I remember a couple of years ago, I can remember a couple multifamilies where they would park on the swale parking, but now to the it's like a full cap. There's like no break, no window. I don't know where these multifamilies are supposed to park. I know a lot of these buildings don't have an actual private parking on their property, because whether they're limited to space or whether the building, the way it was built out at that time and it was approved. But I think we're living in a different our population obviously has changed and has increased, and I think our little city is suffering from the overbearance of over occupancy. And now with the housing issue, I can understand where landlords, maybe it's not the landlords, maybe they're not over occupying, maybe it's just tenants that are in a unit and they're having visitors over and they're partaking in rent. Again, I don't get into the private sector. What I'm just looking at it, I'm looking at it from the outside, and how many cars we have parked in various different multifamilies. And it's also a safety concern, because sometimes I see cars there that have been there for days, weeks, and months, and I don't know if they live there. I don't know if they're visitors. So for all I know, it could be a criminal. They could be I don't know. What I want to do is look at this ordinance to see if there's a way that we can pave out a more structured parking. So I don't know what step to take as far as, if the city paves out, then we do assigned parking and we talk to the landlords and say, hey, listen, based on your multifamily, your occupancy is such number. This is what we're going to offer you based on what you have. And then you could go ahead and pay, whether it be a monthly or an annual parking permit to the city. But we need to start reinvesting back into our city, because we're just, as much as I would love to give everything away, I think it comes to a point in time economically where it just doesn't work. The logistics, financially, this is just, I don't think we're really being responsible. I am totally open to suggestions. I mean, this is not my forte, but I have done my homework. I've had plenty of pictures just in the last couple of weeks, because I want to see if there's a trend. I want to see if it's me, or is it the same cars? Is it not the same cars? But I'm going by in the evenings, and I can, because I live here, so it's very easy for me to go around. I know Canal Street, there's two big, they look like dump trucks. They're not ours, they're private, and they're just using Canal Street as private parking, as a personal parking spot. I know you're going to touch into the overnight parking, which is a Canal Street, so that's that. I think that will take care of that issue. But I don't know, we need to approach the multifamily housing. And I know Councilman Fahed brought this up back in October of 2022. We didn't move forward. Again, we were waiting for the parking study to come through. I wanted to see if the parking study touched a little bit on the housing, but it didn't, because I didn't want to work twice, because maybe it did give some ideas or an approach to that. But we just can't have this whole, for example, Bella Bakery, you have the multifamilies there. Somebody wants to go to Bella Bakery and there's no parking, they'll go ahead and park on the other side. Okay, fine, that's the way that it is now. But I want to secure, it's like both. I want the businesses to have parking, and I also want the residents at the end of the day, when they come home from work, they can rely on a parking space and whatnot, especially it's going to become an issue more in the downtown. But we have many multifamilies all around town that people don't even know. People only think about the ones in the high traffic areas, but we have ones on Flagler Street, like the crevices that you don't know. We have 2-story apartment buildings. And if you go by, you have people parking around the perimeter under stop signs, which by code already you're not allowed to park under any traffic signage. So we need to correct, I think, something that's already become an issue. I know we have a lot of wonderful, very smart people here. I know Ernie Aloma works in the city of Miami Beach. He's touched on the topic of transportation, and he may have some thoughts here today.
That's Rogelio.
Sorry,
Rogelio.
Rogelio.
Yeah,
Ernie.
He
I'm
was
sorry.
chair.
My apologies. So I was confused. I was definitely confused. But anyways, going back to this, I think that we need to change the standard that we have right now for multifamily housing. We need to fix it, because it's not safe. It's not logistically, it's not feasible. If we do have, for whatever reason, let's say there's over occupancy right now, like I said, we can't get into the private sector, but if we do fix the city side, by default, that's going to transpire into the private sector, and people will be like, well, we can't do this anymore because we don't have parking. Now it's a sign, now you have to park. So it kind of self-corrects the issue. I don't know if any of the residents here feel the same way, or the council members. I think that we see that going along the whole city, and especially when this building is done, if we already have a shortage for retails, obviously, I mean, I would go to the next best option and park. If there's a multifamily that has a little space there on the swale, I'm going to park there. I mean, that's just what you're going to do. But I don't think that's fair either for the multifamilies that are there as well. So I'm trying to look for a more reasonable approach here as far as parking, landscaping, paving, and drainage. So I was just looking for some sort of consensus, see if I
Well,
can.
let me
work,
ask you
but-
this, and because I see two, and everything's
Yes.
overlapping.
Yes,
Obviously, we're a
it
small
is.
city and everything overlaps, but seems to me like the parking workshop that we had was to address parking in the commercial areas, which in some commercial areas includes residential parking, particularly because we're about to open a large building in the commercial area that's going to have a good deal of residential. So that's all being discussed, and I think that ties in with what Councilman Santin is bringing up, which was what we discussed at the parking workshop about overnight parking. How do we handle overnight parking? And I brought this up in the past. You know, my concern is people are working from home. I think when the building was approved, we were saying, oh, people would be leaving and going to work, and, you know, and then they'll come back in the hours when the businesses are closing down. People are working from home. That means that, you know, 2, 3, 4 days, you may not need to move your car because you're working remote. So that whole situation has changed. So, but I have a question, I guess, for Heidi or JC. My understanding is swale parking. Swale parking, anyone can park in swale parking. Is that correct? And I mean grassy swale parking that doesn't have a sign saying we have few areas where it says, you know, no parking or
That's correct. I don't believe there's any restrictions on swale
on
parking,
swale
at
parking.
least in our code.
Okay, so
The
if
chair-
someone has a multifamily building, and for the most part, I guessing you're talking about smaller multifamily buildings that we have throughout we have a lot of even single family studios that were built back when the airline industry was very big here, and they were housing, you know, the pilots and flight attendants and all that were headquartered here. Okay, that swale parking is in essence, what is it, Heidi? Public parking? It's not really public parking, but swale parking is
Right of way.
right of way, and people can park there. And there's no differentiation whether I'm going to a business or I live there. The swale parking is by the nature of it being swale and not public parking. Is that correct? I'm asking.
As long as that's what's in your code, yes. Because it's owned by the city. So if it's your right of way. So I'm trying to pull up, unfortunately, the internet is not
Okay.
cooperating.
To
so I
see
can't
if,
pull up the exact
and
section.
then
It's back now, so you want to try it
Okay.
again. It
And
just
then
came back.
public parking is paved parking, which we're designating as public parking, and that's part of what the public, with the workshop, what we're talking about, what hours should it be? Should it be, restricted to 2 hours, or should it be just no overnight parking, or in some areas? But we have to keep in mind that there are a lot of established multifamily units throughout Miami Springs that have been here 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And we have to be very careful about telling them all of a sudden, we're changing the parking on you. These are residents of Miami Springs. And
So-
we need, this has to be thought out in a way that, and it may be something that down the road, as new buildings come up, that we adjust them and that we require them to provide their own parking, and swale parking is not allowed. So there's a whole bunch of things here that we
That
need
is-
to look at.
That is what I was going to bring up. So I want to thank the Vice Mayor for bringing this up, because I think it's thought provoking and it gets us talking. So my understanding is that the swale belongs to the city, but must be maintained by the property owner, and the property owner has the right to call the police if somebody's parked in the swale that you do not give permission to be there. That's my understanding. That's how we've always, that's how it's always been. I work at a school where neighbors complain that people park in their swales, and this is something that I've dealt with. I go out of my way to make sure that people don't park in the swales of the residents. So that's my understanding. Whether or not, I think that the Vice Mayor brings up some things. If there's something happening in terms of how people are parking that goes against our code, I think that is something that should be addressed through code enforcement. But what she does bring up that kind of dovetails to what I said during the parking study, because this actually didn't come up with the parking study other than I brought it up. It was part of the parking section, the second half of the Economic Development Board, which that wasn't included in our parking study workshop, but they did talk about this. And in October of 2022, we actually got consensus on something. But to bring it back to my point, one of the things that in my mind, I felt like, if nothing else that we got out of the parking study, is that we realize now that going forward, developments should provide enough parking, right? Ample parking, because now we have a better sense of how much parking there is and how limited it could be. And I think that going forward, we should probably keep that in mind. And I don't think that we're at the point now. Obviously, back in 2019, we wanted a developer to come in and roll the dice and take a chance and get a development project like that going. So we credited them 26 spaces that were abutting their storefronts along Stadnick Way and Canal Street. But I think now that we look at the parking study and we see that it is kind of limited, I think that in the future, we should keep that in mind when we're negotiating with developers to come in and kind of require that they have ample parking, or at least enough. So having said that, when I consider multifamily parking, I'm thinking about in the future. And the reason that I put it on the agenda back in October of 22, and by the way, we got consensus for it, we just never got around to it. So I would suggest that we go ahead and work on that now. On Park Street in Hibiscus, there was a property. It was zoned that for multifamily, but it was a single family home on an irregular lot. And a local architect that lives here in the Springs purchased the property, and he was putting a number of units on it. And they came to us for a variance on a side setback, but we got emails from some residents that said, "Oh, the parking there on Hibiscus and Park Street, and we already have the apartment, all the people that park in the Grace Lutheran Swale, and now they're going to be putting all these units, and this isn't enough parking." And we actually discussed it only to find that like, well, we're not really here to discuss the parking. That's already been approved. And what we're here is to say yay or nay on this setback variance. And the architect stood here and even told us, well, I'd be willing to put a little bit more parking because I think we only required 1.5 per unit. He was like, I'd be willing because remember, you're going from single family to multifamily because it was zoned for it, but it wasn't. He said, I'm willing to put more, but Chris Hyde, former planner, didn't make me put more because it wasn't necessary based on our code. After that, I put it on the agenda. I spoke with the city attorney and I said, guys, in the future, we will, as we continue to grow and encourage development, there will be more areas where it is zoned for multifamily and nothing is standing in the way for future development of somebody to come in and put multifamily and we just had that narrow like 1.5 parking spaces per unit. And just preliminarily, I asked our city attorney, hey, what are other municipalities doing? And I think if I remember correctly, she said that municipalities, there are some that have, a dozen different parking standards based on what it is that is going to be there, whether it's a duplex or an apartment or this and that. And we have kind of a one size fits all. And whenever we're doing something very narrowly compared to all the other municipalities, it makes you think we should kind of look at that. So my suggestion, and again, I appreciate that the vice mayor brought this up for future development, right? Again, I know that we're talking about, parking now, and that to me, that's code enforcement. But for future development, we've got one standard for parking and it's a one size fits all. And it seems to me that other municipalities have a much broader spectrum of what the required parking is based on what's actually going to be there. I would like consensus again, because we did get it back in October 2022, to have the city attorneys bring to us like, hey, this is what other municipalities are doing, because we got to look ahead, just like we're thinking of parking, in the parking study for new development, further development that's coming down the road. Now is the time, because you can't, like you said, Mayor, you can't change the parking on people once they're already here. They kind of get grandfathered in unless they're violating the code, in which we can enforce it. But I have a feeling that there's going to be more development as this community continues to grow, and developers are going to want to get in on it and turn a single family into, 6 units. And the next thing you know, those 6 units only have, like 9 parking spaces. And then we think to ourselves, wow, that's grossly inadequate. We could do something about it now. I don't know what it is. We should look at what other municipalities are doing, but I think that would be a good thing to look at to kind of save us trouble down the line.
Through the chair, the parking study that we had only targeted certain areas, which were all businesses. Adventist Property, Barry's Cleaners, Springs Town Center, some businesses, the building in Hook Square. This didn't talk about anything residential other than the town center building and the businesses. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. And while I understand that we like to use, I appreciate it because it's a nice way to say, grandfathered in, but when the city needs to do a change because it's responsible to do it, we have to find out ways and remedies to incorporate that, where we can strike a balance between the needs of these multifamilies and the city's needs as well. Because right now it's just aesthetically, it's unappeasing. It looks dirty. I mean, if we really wanted to and take the easy approach, go ahead and put do not parking signs on all the swales, let the grass grow back. But where are the people going to park? We don't have, you know what I mean? We don't have that luxury. So we have to strike a balance where we're trying to create different funds, whether it be a tree trust fund, a parking fund. This would be lining up with the parking fund so that we can reinvest into whatever parking we want to do.
But let me, I'm,
maybe I should provide pictures. I think
no, I think we're all well aware of, the parking,
Through the
but
chair.
the funding is what I am confused. Just 1 second, Councilman, and then I'll let you, Councilman Vasquez wants to say something.
Thank
I'm
you.
confused as to, can you tell us what you mean about the funding? Because right now, let's take a real situation. It's easier if we take a real situation. You brought up the Bella Bakery. Across from the Bella Bakery on the other side, we have several single, multifamily units, some single story, some double story that have been there a long, long time, and they use the swale, and that is their parking for the swale. So let's use that as an example because I think we can all visualize that. I'm not trying to pinpoint anyone. It's
No,
just for
no,
the
no.
ease of, and it's not a particularly large, but it is multifamily. So what do you envision? Are you proposing that we
I'm proposing.
charge parking for them?
I'm proposing to look at this a little bit further to see what options, like how Councilman Fahed just said, what options we have to structurize the parking on public right away. So whether it be shared, no overnight parking, maybe there's a time slot for residents. I really don't know. But what I'm trying to get at is where I would like to see structured paved parking. And I don't know if it gets to the point of where people, the multifamilies where they live, they're parking there now, whether it be a paid system for that parking spot for them. I don't know, Heidi, if you want to chime in with some ideas that you may know out there.
So as I'm hearing all of the discussion from tonight and prior meetings, I've been jotting down some notes, and I think we're in like 3 different categories, and it sort of overlaps with Councilman Santin's agenda item. So one of the things that you guys the council is discussing are your actual zoning requirements, whether it be for a single family property, a commercial property, multifamily, etc. So think of all of the different uses that you might have in a city and what are the parking requirements for that. I think that's something that your planning staff and in their review of the code can provide you with recommendations based on their knowledge of the city and the city's desires to either change it or not, or further sort of specify some of the uses to your point, Councilman Fahed.
And I think
So
let's agree that I think we've got a consensus, and in the past we've done this, that when we're talking about new building, in new
Yes.
building, we all agree, just a consensus that we need to look at, not just accept, well, they can park on the swale, that those are opportunities to make sure that there's
So-
adequate. So let's talk
So I
about
think what I'm-
existing
yeah.
because that's mainly what we have. We have a lot of existing multi-family housing.
So where I'm going with is future housing and how your zoning code can treat future housing, future uses. With your existing uses, and dealing with, for example, the multifamily properties that maybe don't have enough on-site parking and need to, or are utilizing the swale adjacent to them, or they're using paved parking. Those are sort of 2 categories that I've set forth separately. And I think with the paved parking, it goes to your overall discussion of, are you going to charge for parking? Are you not? Are you going to set forth time limits? Are you going to do no overnight parking? And I know the manager has remarks on that, but that's like a separate category. So your zoning code for future properties, your plan for how you're going to use existing city spaces, like we talked about at the workshop. And then the third is your swale parking regulations, which I believe there's a few different places in the code where it talks about your parkways and where you can park and where you can't park. So it's sort of sprinkled throughout the code. So I think that's an area that we need to look at the code and see, do we still want these laws? Do we need to change them? Is it a matter of amending the laws, or is it a matter of enforcing what you already have? So I see those as like the 3 categories, sort of to provide some structure to the conversation. Zoning code, use of existing paved parking, whether it's the city's parking lots or the just parking on your right of way adjacent to different properties, and then enforcement or amendment of your swale parking regulations. That's how I think I can best sum up what the council is discussing.
All right, let's let Councilman Vasquez, you wanted to talk?
Thank you, Mayor. First, there was a point of clarification. 2 things. A point of clarification when Councilman Fahed began talking, he said something about being able to call the police because people are parking on swale. I mean, I can understand the problem around the school. There's no question about it, Walter, and other places that at certain times during the day, people are going to park wherever they park.
I wasn't sure that we could even do that, but be that as it may, on the, my property on De Leon and South Royal, on the north part of on the southern part of South Royal, we have about 5 parking spaces that on that swale that are used on and off, sometimes by me and other people or my neighbors, and most of the time it's not full. Most of the time it's just empty. Clearly, that's a place where people park when we have activities on the circle, all of South Royal, Poinciana, up and down both sides of the street. People park there. So I'm in support of Councilman's recommendation, and with the clarifications made by the attorney that we need to look at these. I would say, I think she called it 3 buckets or 3 areas of but I know that the councilman's primary recommendation was future parking as well. So I think we need to look at both or 3 and begin the process of reviewing this, because more people are going to be moving to the city. Across the street from me, just before you get to the light to make the right to leave the city, and that business area where the sandwich shop and all that is, just behind it is an apartment building. And I see a lot of people from that apartment building parking on the swale right next to the adjacent to the building. I've never heard any problems. I've never heard people arguing out there, but it is a reflection that that building, that structure doesn't have enough parking for residents and or people visiting. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And I would just like, and Heidi, when you look into this further, wondering with a swale, say my own house, I have the swale in front of my house. I can park cars in my swale. If someone owns a multifamily unit, it seems to me like they should have the same right to park their cars in front of their swale that I have to park in front of my swale. I can't imagine that we can tell them, no, the swale is because you have several, you have 6 units on the street. The swale doesn't belong to you. So that's right away. I don't know. I'm just wondering. I don't see how we can enforce one thing and the other. Obviously in a commercial area, that's, I would think that that's different. But when we're talking about residential, I'd be curious to see how that applies, what difference would be. And particularly for the kinds of multifamily units that we have throughout Miami Springs, which is, I think, what we're discussing. So the other thing is, I believe, and I don't know this, it's my understanding, say, years ago, before I was even on the council, the city passed something saying that only the owners of the property can park on the swale in front of their house, because there was some problem going on between 2 residents, and somebody was always parking there, and they passed that. It was my understanding that that was not really enforceable legally, because it's the right of way and swales are right of way. And again, I don't know. So that's probably something we need to look at. There is likely something in our books that says you can only park on the swale in front of your house.
I don't know if that language exists. I'm not sure. Maybe it does. But the issue when it comes to multifamily, I mean, it's easy to, I guess, identify who's like in your house, for example, your example. It's easy to recognize, yeah, that car, there's nobody in my house that owns that car. It's not supposed to be here. In multifamily, it becomes more difficult. Now we're talking about, in a little bit, we'll talk about the parking in the business district. And in my mind, I think about that multifamily pocket that doesn't have any parking inside, the ones along Canal Street, right by Crackers, or the building that was Crackers. They park on the swale. Now, when we start enforcing 2-hour parking elsewhere, and people are like, oh, you know what? Let me just park right here. There's an open spot here on the swale. Let me throw it in there. There's no sign there that says they can't park there. It'll be very difficult for the police to enforce that. So I think in what I've seen in areas like in the northern part of Miami Beach, where they have older buildings that have basically parking, they've created resident parking zones, and then they'll color them depending on the zone. So it'll be like, if you live in this area, it's the green zone. you can park here in the
And
swale.
there's like a permit system where you
There's
have
a permit
permit, a little
system.
decal on your car that that you can
Correct.
apply
So
for it.
that, I'm not saying that that's something we need to do immediately, but that's food for thought because that problem, if people will find an open parking spot to park, if we become, or if we're fortunate enough to become a booming, center with a lot of restaurants and people come out and visit us, that may be an issue down the road. So that's something to consider because it's really difficult to enforce and you can park wherever, really, if you don't have a sign up there.
Mayor, can I, just so that I'm clear and we're all clear on what the direction is. And I think this goes to, I'm sort of grouping them together, Councilmember Santeen, with your permission, but I think just to address both items head on. So the first will be, and this is really working with the manager and the planning staff, looking at your zoning requirements for parking in general. And if there's any recommendations on that. And that would be to address future parking. And this is, Councilman Fahad, this was your sort of item. Then the second thing that we'll be looking at is with the manager, really, the use of the city's parking areas, whether those be the lots that we've talked about behind like the Starbucks or et cetera. I don't know that there's necessarily a legislative change from our end in drafting an ordinance. I think it's more, I'm just grouping the items that you've discussed so that the manager and I can figure out who's doing what. So I know he has his recommendations based on the parking study and what he's seen so far, so we'll address that. And that goes to Councilman Santeen's issues on what he's raising on the overnight parking and the 2-hour parking in different areas of the city. And then the third thing we'll look at is Vice Mayor Bravo's inquiries about swale parking. And so I had forgotten that we do have a section in the code. It's in 96-07. So it's outside of your zoning code, but it's a section that gives, unlike other cities, and I think in the county, it gives a preferential right to property owners to sort of decide who parks on their swale, because it's not the private property owner's swale. The swale belongs to the city. It's a public right of way. So by ordinance, the city many years ago determined that the private property owners would be able to say, you can park here, you can't, I want the police to enforce this, etc. So that is in your code. And if that's something that I can circulate it to you all, and if that's something that you wish to review and change, we can certainly do so. In looking at this quickly, the code doesn't distinguish which property owners it's talking about. So it's not clear if that preferential right applies to only single family homes and the single family districts, or if it's applicable to the multifamily, which goes to the vice mayor's point, or if it even extends to commercial areas. So I think this is probably one of those areas where we want to look at what recommendations can we come back with.
Needs a cleanup.
It definitely does because especially in the multifamily that I was mentioning on Canal, I highly doubt the property owner lives there.
Right.
And so who's going to call the police? A renter, one of the renters? They're not supposed to be here, but what if it's a neighbor that's parked there, that's allowed to be there, and it lends to conflict.
Right.
So with something that we have to look into a little further. Okay. Look into a little further and clarify, because it could lend itself to a problem.
Right. Mayor, if you don't
Yes,
mind.
sir.
So I agree. I think that given that, I mean, I think as a owner of a single family home, I understand that part of it, right? The preferential, the preference of the property owner to decide who can park there, but I could totally see where the conflict could arise in multifamily or commercial, something like that. Just the only thing that I am really pushing for, right, even though I agree with that, is for future development in multifamily, because like we know, as we look at, the current development that's coming up, you look at it, you look at what was approved, and it was basically 70 spots for 51 units that are 2 and 3 bedroom. And, you kind of look at that and you think, Well, that seems kind of inadequate. If we lived in New York where you could jump on a subway, that'd be different, but we live in Miami. And that's what happened in this property on Park Street in Hibiscus. It was 6 units and it was 9 spaces. And just, you kind of think to yourself, how are 6 2 and 3 bedroom units gonna have just 9 spaces? It just seems inadequate. So it's my understanding that this isn't as easy as having the city attorney just show us what the other municipalities do. I believe that information has to be pulled and then given to the city planner, and then they make recommendations for us. So for future, that's my hill that I'm gonna die on, right? Like for future development, I think that's important because we look at in the outskirts, and it's a great point brought up by the vice mayor. The parking study only looked at the central business district, but there's these little developments that come up in the outskirts, like the Palmetto apartments that came up behind the gas station. Little developers are going to try to pick off little places like that. I could see things happening on Canal Street where it's going to go up, and then we just want to make sure that whatever the standard for how much parking you need to have, because like I said, I feel like going forward, development should have enough parking, right? So we should look at what the standard is for how much you should have so that we don't have to, because then it's too late once somebody's already like made the pitch, all right, we're building it. And they're like, oh, that's,
So let me ask this. So is there something, and I agree with Councilman Behet with, it's two different things. One is moving forward, let's make sure that that we have the opportunity to agree with the parking that's allowable, not just, well, this is all that's required, so this is it. That for new development that's multifamily, that we have input, because obviously in a city like ours, it's a very different situation. Say one building that we're talking about, that there is relatively a lot of swale parking there, and some other area where there's basically none, might be commercial, and that could vary greatly block to block in Miami Springs. So do we need to, is there something that we need to put in our process right now to make sure, because in the past, in the particular building that you're talking about, that was already approved, that was what was required, that going forward, it's not just, and I'm not sure how that, I'll leave it up to you. It's not just, oh, well, all you need is 1.5. If it's a new multifamily, that we have the opportunity as a council to discuss it, considering where it is. And that's going to be a major, I think, influence for all of us. If it's an area where there's plenty of swale, it shouldn't be a problem, might be fine. In another area, we may say the same exact plans for the building would be a concern, and we want to include additional parking for them. So if that's something that we need to put in our process, let's do that, because I think I'm hearing consensus from all of us that we want that
Through
to
the
move
chair.
forward.
Through the
right?
chair. Section 9607 gives preferential right to single-family homeowners to utilize their swale areas. It says the property owner may enforce its preferential rights to the usage of such swale
Somebody here?
areas to other parties, etc. So that only applies to single family.
I
Going back to
think,
what you were saying,
but I think that
the multifamilies don't have that right.
okay, but I think that later on, and I don't know, that was challenged, and we really, can't do that. Give it to a sign. It's right away. It's public right away, and the homeowner does not have the ability, even though we have it in our code and we can ask our police.
Just talking about.
So no, but I'm saying even that. So probably we need to find out if that's the case or not. I don't know, but I believe that's what I heard after that went into place.
So Mayor, to the first question, it would be a zoning code change. So your zoning code currently says a single family home is required to have X amount of parking. A multifamily unit is required to have Y.
2 and 3/4.
So it's set forth. So when a development comes in for approval, whether it's a as of right approval or that it requires a public hearing before the city council, the planning staff looks at that, and they'll look at what's being proposed. They'll look at the number of units, the square footage. They'll go through their whole checklist of all of the zoning code requirements, and among them is the parking. So that's why I keep saying that, we'll work with the planning staff, and to the extent an ordinance change is needed, we'll do so that it's implemented. And if there's a concern that there is some imminent development that we're not aware of, or we want the community to know that this is something that we're looking at, I can consider doing something what's called a zoning in progress. And basically it gives the city an opportunity to review something and put a pause and apply different type of regulations. So we can do all of that. But again, that part is updating your zoning code to the extent an update is needed. You may be surprised to find that your parking requirements may be more strenuous than other cities. And I know, we have some
Maybe,
experts in the room who would tell you some places, some cities in the county have done away completely with parking requirements.
But they pay.
And so there's no parking required, and it sort of leaves it to the developers to determine whether or not they're going to provide for parking on their own site and how they're going to achieve that. I think part of the discussion that we had during the parking workshop, I forget who may have brought it up, but do you have the ability to rent a multifamily building if you're not providing parking? And so you leave that to the private landowners, to the folks, as the gentleman was mentioning, the private sector to make those decisions. Or you can continue with what you have and update it, further refine it. So I think I am by no means an expert on parking. I know how to write code, but that's something that really the planning staff, and unfortunately they're not able to be with us this evening, but they will certainly have recommendations on what to do.
Okay, and I think
Because-
one other thing to mention is what the vice mayor read, the statute said that from what we put in place a while back, that the single family property owner can say, I only want my swale used for this, but that even with that in place, that does nothing to a multifamily unit not being able to use the swale. All it's saying is that the multifamily unit, if that, I'm just going on the face value of what you read out, cannot say, you can't park here, from across the street, but that right of way is still for anyone in that area to use too. Right, so it's still available, it's right of way. It's not something that they shouldn't be parking there. It's right of way and anyone can park there. Okay, so
Yeah, I think-
Councilman, did you
No, I
want to say
just think
something?
that was.
Or
that's
we
the
could
reason
move
we
to
hired the-
yours.
We hired the company
Yes,
for a reason.
yes, and all this is
So they're gonna come back to
progress.
us unless one of us specifically knows of an area that is different, then that's different, so we can hurry them up with putting something in place. But in general, we're gonna get it from them, because every section that we're talking about will be different.
And I think
By
two
the way,
things.
I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
To that point, I think it may be part of a natural discussion when we talk about the gateway overlay again. It'll be a natural discussion on the Abraham Tract and 36th Street rezoning. So, you're already looking at those three parts of your city. Then separately, I know this was Councilman Fahet's point, what do you do when you have a multifamily project like the one that came before the council that is proposing 5 units on what we would
A single family home.
what we
lot.
think of as a single family home lot, but it wasn't quite that. It was
It was zoned for
um,
multifamily.
right. So those are the sorts of questions that working with the planning staff will be able to
And
better determine.
something to keep in mind too is we're talking at least about two things and probably a whole bunch of others, but one is parking, availability of parking. But in addition to availability of parking, and it's a point that Vice Mayor Bravo is bringing up, is attractiveness of parking. It's not just that it's available, but that we're allowing parking and that it's attractive, it's safe and, and not just, kind of shoddy of, oh, you can park anywhere along there, the street. So it's, it's doing something that meets both things, because ultimately anything we do should be looking at, making Miami Springs, the quality of life better here. And part of that is, aesthetics, is making it attractive, that everywhere we, I always say, we say beautiful Miami Springs, and there's some areas that aren't that beautiful that we got to work on. Okay, so JC, you were going to say something?
No, I think the council's direction is pretty clear. We'll look at, we'll talk and we'll look at all the issues that we discussed, and in particular, what Councilman Fahet brought up as far as the parking restrictions, in particular with the multifamily moving forward. Review it, see if it's you know, if it needs to be adjusted.
Okay. So let's move on. If you guys are okay, we'll move to the next one, which is all related anyway, Councilman Santin's item. And I think Rogelio, you wanted to speak on this item? So let you go ahead and speak first. You signed up to speak on this agenda item.
So and I thought I had put the other one too, E. Anyway, so Rogelio Madan, 224 Lenape Drive. Mayor Chet Fields was my middle school basketball coach. Been here my whole life, since everybody was talking about how their time here. Okay, so I believe that there is.
But give us a little background too, because in addition to being resident of Miami Springs,
So-
you have, which I always say, we need to tap into the professional expertise of our residents.
So I'm the Development and Resilience Officer for the City of Miami Beach Planning Department. I have a master's degree in urban planning. I'm a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. So studying
you're on our
cities is what
board.
I do, and I'm on the planning board and board
Okay.
adjustment. For this ordinance, I believe there is parking in Miami Springs. I've never had an issue finding a spot. I believe our parking is poorly managed. We may not find a spot right in front of where you go today. For the first time in my life, I couldn't park right in front of City Hall. I did have to park across the street and I did have to walk a block. So I think there is sufficient parking in this area. I think it's poorly managed. And I think it's, as you just said, it's unattractive. Friday, I ate at Sayamos. We parked behind in the lot here behind next to where the police park. There's a public lot there and it's very dark, does not feel safe. I was with my family, so I didn't, I had no big issue there. But for somebody who's alone, it does not feel safe. And the same goes for the other parking lot that's behind Starbucks. The same goes for the parking on Canal Street. It's just poorly managed. In terms of overnight parking, one of the things when the development at Hook Square came before the council, one of my recommendations was that we do prohibit overnight parking to make sure that those residents use the parking in the building and not the parking that's around it that's intended for the retail. I think for the retail, I think they can manage that. In terms of having signage for 2-hour parking, I think that's very important for these businesses. Important to make the most convenient parking for those customers that are coming in for quick in and out type purchases. If you're going to Starbucks, you have the ability to go in and out and get your coffee and go. You have parking available for employees. It's a little bit further away so that they have to park. They have the more inconvenient spots. And so it's important for us to manage the parking appropriately so that the parking gets used efficiently. There is parking, it's just not being used efficiently. Somebody who might work there might park in front of in the most convenient spot for them. And then a resident that wants to come buy something says, oh, there's no parking here. Well, why didn't that employee park along the canal or behind the building? That employee should have parked somewhere else. And so the parking just needs to be managed a lot better. And that can be done with signage, maybe 15-minute parking in front of Starbucks, maybe 2-hour parking in front of the Ceviche by Divino and in front of the dentist office. And then you allow longer term parking along Canal Street where employees can park and perhaps residents. And it's a good idea to explore potentially having residential parking permits. The city of Miami uses it. The city of Miami Beach uses it, and it works very well to make sure that the residents that need it have the priority. However, personally, I would only issue those spots to people who live in existing non-conforming buildings. If you're in a new building, you probably shouldn't qualify for one of those spots because they do have parking. And so just touching on the previous issue, you're going to find that cities are reducing their parking requirements. It costs $50,000 a space. And if you add that to the cost of a unit, it makes the unit unaffordable for people. And the state is actually mandating through the Live Local Act that cities consider parking reductions when workforce housing projects are being developed as part of the Live Local Act. And so that's generally what you're going to find. But that being said, cities also have a sliding scale for parking requirements. So smaller units have a smaller parking requirement than a larger unit. And I don't think Miami Springs does that. And that's something that Miami Springs may want to consider. If you're building 1,000 square foot unit, it makes sense to require at least 2 spaces for that unit. But if you have a smaller 1-bedroom unit, 1.5 is probably going to be sufficient. And then another thing is if you make it too easy for people to park, people will park. If you build it, they will come. And one of the goals with urban planning is to reduce traffic, encourage people to walk, encourage people to find another way to get around. And Miami Springs is a great walkable community. A lot of people might be able to live here without having a car, but they have one anyways. And if we make it too easy for them, they're just gonna have as many cars as they can. So you gotta think about the issue with supply and demand. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rogelio. Okay, so Councilman, I'm gonna let you, and before you get started, as I've told you, I have to leave. I have to catch a flight tonight at 10:30, so I am leaving. I'm going to pass the gavel on to our Vice Mayor, and I will still be participating, but I'll be joining Councilman Vasquez doing it remotely. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Safe flight. Well, the reason I bring this item for discussion is not at all to only come up with a parking solution today, but obviously look at some of the options that talked about in the parking study. And the goal is just try to see if we can get a consensus on the first phase. That's one of the things that I liked about the parking study, that they were realistic to say that we got a lot of things that we can do, just like Rogelio was mentioning today, to start the first phase of this. But the reality is that we have to tackle it sooner than later, because our reality is just around the corner, which is obviously 51 units that are going to be occupied before the actual, retail will be, because that'll take a little bit longer for build out. So further, without delaying this, I'm going to just go over my plan for the phase one that I feel that it needs to be immediately considered. So first and most important is 2-hour parking. There's a lot of sections that are 2-hour right now, and yet the signs are not there, or they're faded, or not at all. So I believe that we're talking about the overlay district and the CBD, the central business district. I believe that in order to curtail now the possibilities of people staying there overnight, for right now, later on we can discuss overnight parking and restrictions on specific time, is put 2-hour parking all across the board, everywhere, including the off-street parking. Now, the off-street parking, in my opinion, is something that we need to maybe address for employee parking with a permit, because the reality is most people are going to say, well, where are my employees going to park? Well, what we don't want you to do is to park in front of your business. Let that for other people to come in and have a quicker turnover. So in my opinion, considering that one of the off-street parking areas are not really considered or not used a lot, obviously we're going to address that, as we just talked about, phase one, lighting, better signage to get there. So restriping Canal Street, part of phase one. Do things, take these little steps to accomplish what we ultimately want, which is an easing of the traffic situation. The parking situation. But obviously, when you address the 2-hour time limit, I think the most important thing of all this is enforcement. If we don't do enforcement, this is just never going to change the behavior. But and we should. And that means, yes, we're going to have to probably consider a license plate recognition system, where people go around and the police, I should say, or one of the PSAs, and actually, track if people are there more than 2 hours. Now, like I said, because of the employee possibly always wanting to do that step, and now they can't, let's consider these off-street parking areas. We're talking about not just behind Starbucks. We're talking behind the post office. We're talking about areas on Westward Drive. There are off-street parking. They could have a parking permit from the city for employees. I'm not talking about charging. I don't want to get that discussion now, because I don't think we should. And there's some administrative fee. Well, that's something that maybe we can consider. But in general, do not charge the employee parking permit, but give them the option to park there. At the same time, those areas should have some flexibility with the 2-hour parking in case it's not utilized and some patron of another business wants to go there and park. Give the option. Maybe in the future we could change that. It's only exclusive to employees. But the most important thing is to put this 2-hour parking, put it on all the. I'm talking about not the off-street parking lots. I'm talking about right in front of the businesses is the most important thing that we need to implement now. And then at the same time, just like Rogelio was just mentioning about the quick curbside pickup. We know we can do this right away too. We can put 15-minute or 10-minute parking in front of Starbucks, in front of the town center. Probably will need a couple. We're talking about a large restaurant that's going to go there. In front of Sushi Saki or one side on the other side on Westward Drive. But these little things that we can do today, we don't need to go into this discussion and get an ordinance change. The 2-hour parking is already there. All we got to do, in my opinion, if we do order new signs, put the ordinance on there. That kind of gives a little bit more validity, and people kind of respect it a little bit more. And then ultimately, it's if the whole goal is to help these businesses succeed, turnover is super, super important. And unfortunately, a lot of the employees are the ones that are parking in front of their own establishments. So I'm not saying not to consider and helping them. Obviously, that's why we talk about off-street parking area, lots that we have right now. But my whole key is trying to help these businesses be successful. So I recommend that we, right off the bat, do these things, right? Restripe Canal Street, better lighting on our off-street and on-street parking areas, and the signage with 2-hour parking across the board. And implementation for a police department, or whether they have to hire, or we have to hire a possible assistant to help on this, but buy the equipment and enforce it. It's the only way people will listen. They should not be there for more than 2 hours. Maybe later on we could move a certain section of Canal Street to the west side of it and allow 3-hour parking there or longer, a certain section. Because if you do go to watch a football game at the bar and grill, or you go with a large party to a dinner party, 2 hours go by fast. Okay, so we can discuss 3 hours later. I'm more concerned about the immediate attention to our phase 1, which is what we have now, existing stuff that we have now, and maybe moving it a little bit more in reference to the 2-hour parking. But more importantly, back to again, I keep emphasizing on this, is enforcement. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, can we hear from the city manager?
Yes, Pika, you stole my thunder. After the parking study came out, after reviewing it, I was thinking to myself, what can we do right now? What do we have control of, and what can we do? And as Rogelio mentioned, one of the things that stood out to me was the condition of our available public spaces. You have one side of Canal Street where One Town Center was built and looks beautiful, right? The parking area looks really good. And then the other side of Canal Street leaves a little to be desired. There, the parking lot behind the Starbucks, it didn't even occur to me, the lot that's sandwiched between the private lot and the police lot, that lot, and we have Westward Drive, which is not in terrible shape, but we may or may not want to consider striping it. Then adding the parallel spots along Curtis Parkway where the pavers were put in, I think we could increase the number of parking spaces out there using that paver system. I didn't put it on an item on the agenda because I'm still getting estimates, prices, so that you guys understand what I'm dealing with. But I didn't just want to do striping. I wanted to actually put new asphalt down. There's certain areas that the asphalt is not in good shape. So doing the what do they call that? The seal coat isn't really good. So I'd rather do it right, and then maybe even pour a continuous curb instead of those parking blocks. But we can discuss that a little later on. I wanted to get a quote for that. Wanted to get a quote for resurfacing the parking lot behind Starbucks and doing the rest of the paver work on Curtis Parkway. The second part of that is signage. Police cannot enforce parking if there are no signs. We're not letting people know. So the idea would be, I hear they don't want overnight parking. The idea would be establish your parking limit. What do you want? 2 hours, 3 hours? It's up to the council. Now, Rogelio actually brought up a good point right now. We're gonna need spaces for the employees to park. We're gonna need that. So maybe dedicating a portion of Canal Street for that, or maybe along the areas of Westward, I'm not even gonna say Westward, but the parking spot, the parking lot behind the Starbucks, maybe some of that could be dedicated to that. I mean, we're a little bit limited as far as lots are concerned. So then the council would have to decide that. And then the third part is enforcement. And then I'm getting a proposal for what they call the mobile LPR that it's on the car. So we can begin enforcing. That'll be like the electronic or digital chalking, instead of getting down and chalking somebody's wheel or tire and then coming back 2 hours later and saying, oh, it's still there. That's done now electronically with this LPR. So I'll get that proposal as well. Even though police now, with utilizing the public services office or the public service aid, the PSA, they're enforcing obvious parking infractions, parking on the wrong side, facing the wrong side, or double parked. They're beginning to do that type of enforcement. And then the good point, which was mentioned by both of you, is the curbside pickup parking spot, 10-minute, 15-minute. And I think we need to provide 1, maybe 2 spaces for that. And you see the example on the other side. And I think this was done during COVID in front of the Cozy Corner. They have a sign there that says curbside pickup only, and it's being respected. Nobody's parking there. So I think that should be done as well, especially on where Sushi Siam, it's Sushi Siam? Sushi Saki and the Subway in that area there. There's a number of restaurants that could use that service. At the next meeting or at the one after that, depending on when I get the price, I'll bring that to you so we know what we're talking about. The good news is I do have some ARPA funds that I can utilize towards this and get it done sooner than later.
I could add one thing. It's just 2-hour, parking everywhere. Sundays, holidays, no enforcement, no need. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are closed on a Sunday, especially the ones that are not in the retail business, in my opinion.
Yes, and then the other thing I was going to say is, let's take care of what we can, right? And then let the building open up, and let's see what it looks like. Let's see the effect. Maybe the parking is going to be worse. It's better. It's not that bad. We have to kind of let it play out. We don't want to continue doing different things until we really see what we're actually dealing with.
So Councilman, for the 2 hour, how do we do for the employees? I mean, I'm a little bit, I want to get started right away.
They get the permit. If they have the permit from the city, we would issue them a permit. We have to designate the areas that they can, go to. Like I said, I think because of Starbucks is an area that, behind Starbucks, is an area where a good portion of the businesses will be. There's also another portion that is going to be behind the post office, would be more convenient, but they also have a little bit of options on Westward Drive behind these buildings or public off-street parking areas too. They have the right to give them a parking permit for an employee, and then they just go there, first serve, first come. Obviously, there's a space taken for somebody that's doing the 2 hour. I think that's where we start gauging if it's worth just say exclusive only employees, maybe future residential permit. I'm saying for right now, we got to address the employees.
I think the easier way to go through Councilman's idea is to maybe go through the actual employer. Is to go through the actual employer to provide these permits to the employee, because you have employees shuffling, they're either quitting or coming and going. So maybe give a set of permits to the actual employer, and the employer could go ahead and disperse those permits as necessary and turn in those permits back at the end of the day. So maybe the next shift can perhaps use it. I don't know.
Where would they park with that permit?
At the 2 hour, they put it, and
But
they
you
know
don't-
that they're allowed to
Yeah,
park
but you don't want
2 hours.
them parking in a 2 hour
I
spot.
don't want it to be parking in front of the businesses. That's my whole point.
Right.
There's where you need turnover. That's where the business owner needs the most turnover
Mhm.
to be successful. I'm talking about all our off-street lots.
We have 2 of them off
No, we
street.
have 3, or we really have more because we have all of Westward Drive.
Those aren't,
Those businesses are off there. Those are ours.
You know, but that's not, with the off-street parking lots is what I'm,
No, that's not a lot, but
the-
there's,
the
there's,
public,
there's spaces behind even Cozy Corner, even though some of them have taken them to be their business.
But those are private, right? Those aren't
No,
public.
there's stuff that adjacent on the
alley
the
side,
building is
back?
different, but on the alley side,
No, but behind Cozy Corner, I don't think it's
the
public.
ones that are on the building, but not the ones that are closer to the multifamily. So that's what I'm saying. We have to get an assessment,
Okay.
but there's a lot of stuff on Westward Drive behind these businesses
But they can park.
where they have, that's technically public parking. That the multifamily residents have used it, that's fine. We'll have to tackle that part if we decide to do a residential permit. I'm just saying that for right now, the employee could have a little bit more options.
Okay.
And then we can gauge it from there. Is it still necessary? These employees,
Okay.
we're having a shortage. Okay, then we gotta tackle it another level. But I think we need to designate a certain area for them.
Let me,
Because the
let
whole
me,
ultimate is not gonna be in front of the
let me,
business.
hold, and I apologize for this because behind Cozy Corner, I wasn't aware that it was considered a municipal lot. And I
It's
don't know
not.
what, I don't
Not
know
a
what,
lot.
I
There's
don't know, I
spaces,
don't,
though.
I
But
don't,
there aren't public spaces behind Cozy Corner.
that's my point. The what, I'm sorry? Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Those are spaces. that have
Those, there is public there, but not behind Cozy Corner and what used to be Bodies by Madi.
But I'm sorry, yeah, but there is spaces, what I'm saying, some behind some of these buildings.
Right. So, can I chime in? I think that trying to have a designated lot for employees, well, here, why don't I start off by just throwing a real monkey wrench into things? So the 28 spaces on the first floor of the building is going to be the Wild West, right? Because we have no enforcement control over that floor. So basically, you know, it's first come, first serve, whoever goes in there, and that we have no, that's not our domain, and that's going to be 28 spots that they're going to be killing for, and I'm sure residents are going to be wanting to park there, and employees will try to sneak a spot. That's actually the floor that has the most parking spaces is the first floor parking lot of that garage
Town center, you're saying.
in the town center. But I think that trying to give permits to employers is going to be a lot. So here's the thing, right? The third rail of Miami Springs politics is saying that you're going to charge for parking. Nobody wants to charge for parking, right? We'll all get
No, we're not.
voted off. Right.
just
I
talked
get
about
that. I get that. People need to understand that all of the plate reading technology that we're going to buy and getting, hiring the people that are going to enforce this, that's all going to cost the city money, right? That's why so many municipalities do the pay for park, because that brings you the revenue to allow to enforce the parking. So we're going to be doing a lot of parking enforcement on our own dime. And I think that trying to give employers decals, I think is going to be a lot. I think that we should decide, and I'm okay with allowing, we've had lots of conversations. I've had lots of conversations with the city manager, and I'd be open to just having staff come to us with a recommendation, kind of a plan, and let us kind of then cherry pick what we want to change, what we do. We could have the argument, but I think we should allow them to just come up with something. But I think that we should decide these are the areas where we want the 2 or 3 hour parking, right? Because there is going to be a sports bar, and all of the basketball games tend to last more than 2 hours, and football games definitely last more than 2 hours. But I think that we should decide this is where we have the time restricted parking, and then just have some parking like at the end of Canal Street that is just open. And then that could be for anybody who is going to stay longer or employees, and but I completely agree with you, Councilman Santini, because I think that you hit the nail on the head. I'm not even thinking in terms of overnight parking. The vet is going to open up. They're going to have people that are going to be there for 8 hours. Okay. And that sports bar is going to open up. Like I've said before on the dais, on a Saturday night, they're going to have 20 employees in that sports bar. Those people are going to be there 6 to 8 hours. And if they're taking up those spaces that you want turnover, that's a disaster. So I think that we just need to protect the spots, and and I'm okay with letting, staff kind of come up with a recommendation. I think we should say, these are the spots that we definitely want the turnover, and the rest of them, it's open for first come, first serve, and have the employees figure out how to, where they're going to park. I mean, that happens in a lot of places with employees that work at like stores and more, like they got to find a place to park that isn't time restricted. I think that doing the decals is just going to be more work for us. And I just want to remind everybody that if we're not going to be charging for parking, which I don't think there's any appetite for that at this moment, the more complicated we make this enforcement, the more it's going to cost us in terms of like the logistics of, you know, who's the new employer and how many decals you need. Now you switched and that kind of thing. I think that that's going to make it very difficult.
Well, also, I mean, I wouldn't give free parking. I mean, the business owner would have to pay for those permits for those respective employees. But I agree with you. I think that we should go through the different process to figure this out, because I mean, if I had to work there and I had to go around in circles and around in circles and have to leave an hour early, it becomes like, okay, do I want to work here now? Everything, you know, it's just like commuting to work. Is it worth it? Everybody weighs out their time.
Let me take a crack at it with staff. And you bring up, you brought up a really good point right now. You don't want to make it to the point where discourage business owners or employees from those business owners to come to work. You don't want to do that. There's a fine line we have to balance there. Let me take a crack at it, you know, and take a look at all the parking spaces that are, you know, maybe not in a lot, but behind, and kind of take that inventory that way. And see if we can come up with a plan. I mean, when I worked at Publix, you know, as a bag boy when I was 16, first day of work, they were like, all right, don't park anywhere basically I can see you. You guys park at the ends all the way back there. So maybe, you know, there's certain areas that we can put some of the, you know, the employee and say, these are the designated areas for your employees, you know, further along Canal or whatever. But I'm just thinking right now, we'll have to find those parking spaces.
We're just talking, but also we're talking about a good portion, actually, except for maybe Milam Supermarket, maybe Truist. I mean, there's certain buildings obviously conforming, but the general buildings in our town are non-conforming. So you don't have that luxury to tell your employees, oh, you guys go that little pocket area in the parking lot and this will be it. They're going to do whatever they need to do. And they're going to go to the closest thing to get them to walk the least amount to their place. So we kind of have to change that behavior. So that's my thing about making the emphasis on the 2-hour no parking in front of any of these businesses at all for employees.
I think, and if I may, Vice Mayor, is the key there to what Councilman Santin is saying is that we get the employers, the owners, to buy into, we're making it more available parking for their customers. And so your employees are going to have a place to park. It's not going to be as convenient because it's longer term parking, but what we're doing is, you know, making it more attractive for your customers to visit your site.
Well, I guess I'm kind of, look, it's hard to get all those to get a consensus. But my whole point was that this phase one needs to go as fast as possible.
No, and I agragree with you.
I'm getting the consensus of saying, let's put this plan to action today, not, you know, 4 months from now, because we're going to address this sooner. And I'd rather have things in place where they know what they're dealing with versus everybody coming over to your office and say, well, since when did you put this sign up? So
no, you're absolutely right. And I'll bring to you a plan as far as phase one, what we can control. And then I'm also going to have to, as far as the parking allocation plan, if you, and for lack of a better term, discuss that as well. I'll be back at either the next meeting. Well, at the next meeting, I hope to bring the numbers for the actual physical improvements that we can do.
Okay. Heidi, for the purpose of continuing on this item, do we want to make a motion for consensus or a motion to approve to move forward to the next step so we could start addressing Councilman's item?
I think there's consensus.
I think there's consensus on the three things that we mentioned before. I think it addresses both
everything.
Your discussion item and the vice mayor, the councilman's item. If you'd like to make it a motion, you can, but you don't need to.
I mean, there's nothing to motion on really. It's just to get to the next.
No,
So
that's
it's
fine.
all
If we get
exploratory
consensus,
and coming
right,
back.
what this does,
That's fine. This is what I want.
what it does, it's actually a step ahead because it allows you now, if you want it personally or any of us, to collaborate with our city attorney and zoning and staff so we could get there. So when we come back, you come back with your.
Good. I think the
You're right.
message was clear. So we're
No,
all,
I agree.
I'm clear.
Yeah, we're good.
so, thank you.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Thank you.
I had a couple conversations with JC and he was already like, he had already told me that they're working on it, but it's good to kind of get consensus on it that we don't want to wait on this. So thank you for bringing it up.
Right. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? My understanding is we already got approval to extend the paver parking in front of the Papa John's along Curtis Parkway to get like 6 or 7 more spots, right?
I believe the council already was okay with that. I think the price came
But
back.
I think, and Mayor, maybe you can chime in. My understanding is it was like a county issue since it was there, like, I think we
It's
got
county
approval.
land, it's county land, and the reason that we can get it easily, that we got it easily approved is that it's pervious. So there's no underground drains or anything required for that paver. So that's why we have that kind of paver parking, and they had approved, and Tammy's the one that knows the details on this, but we requested to extend it along the whole, continue that block of Curtis Parkway, first block where Papa John's is, and also a little further, and also provide the same kind of parking on the other side of Curtis, the first block, to make it consistent. So, and it's only the first block of Curtis, which on both sides, I believe we're going to have between 30 to 50 spots total, including what's already there when we complete that. And it was approved by the county. That now we had asked, the county paid for the first one. We got them to pay for that first section that we have in place. This is good right here. They are balking at paying for the second one, but you know, I'm going to pursue it a little more and see if we can get them to pay for it.
And Mayor, it's my understanding that we requested to extend the southbound one. Do we need to make a request to do the northbound Curtis Parkway on that first block also? Because by the way, I think that when the memorial is done, it's actually going to look nice with the pavers on either side.
Yes.
And we're already
Yes.
getting, the grass is getting killed with all the farmer's market is great. But I think that putting those pavers is just going to add more parking. But I believe, Mayor, we have to request that side, right? We haven't.
No, I
made that-
believe, we'll have to check with Tammy because she's the one, but I think when we requested to continue, what I had asked is to also allow us to do the other side. So I believe that, but again, we'll have to check with Tammy that it was one swoop. We asked them to continue the Papa John's side and then also put it on the other side, and that's okay. And talking about parking, future parking, we need to make sure as much as possible when we provide future parking, create new parking, that we do make it so that it is pervious parking that doesn't add to our flooding problems, you know, and causes more need for more stormwater control and all. The rainwater is just flowing through to the underground aquifers. But Tammy is the one, Tammy Romero, we'll have to check with her as to, I think both of them are already okay.
Any more discussion? Right, we're gonna move on to 12D. Request by
Vice Mayor, point of order.
Sorry, Councilman.
Sorry, like the voice from beyond. We left 2 items that we didn't discuss, and I wasn't sure. We said we're going to take them up later, but there's a consent agenda, resolution 9C, and then there was in other business, 12C was a request by Mayor Mitchell for the discussion about budget planning.
No,
So
those
just
were
one-
taken off.
Those were taken off. Thank
Yes.
you.
I took that one off because JC, I've spoken to him and he has a plan for our budget, as he should. You know, he's a new city manager and every city manager has their own idea of how the budget process should progress. So there's no need to discuss it. He's going to be approaching each of us and letting us know how he plans to conduct the budget process.
I appreciate that, Mayor. I just wasn't sure because sometimes when you're off, you know, on Zoom like I am, sometimes you lose some of the discussion, so. But I
Yes,
just wanted
thank
to
you,
remind them,
Councilman.
I wanted to remind the Vice Mayor, and if that's
Thank
it,
you.
then that's cool, we can go.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to 12D.
A request by me to consider renaming Prince Field in honor of Douglas Orr. Prince Field at Douglas Orr Park. I first want to recognize the Prince family because, you know, a lot of times when people give requests about somebody special to the community or pioneer, well, rename this and rename that. So obviously the first thing is like, well, this person must have been someone, you know, that had an impact in our community. Why, and not they would have named them. Sure enough, the Prince family donated the land where Prince Field is now. So to me, that's a big deal, right? It's almost a city block. But at the same time, the suggestion that was brought up as an idea, they mentioned the Mark Light Stadium and, you know, Alex Rodriguez putting all this money. You know, Douglas Orr, obviously, aside from the pioneer, and you heard Tom Webb, and you had Roland Rivera, longtime resident of Springs. So he was, a board member in the rec for a long time. He is one that gave both time and money. That one's not an easy combination. People do give money, and some people give time. But to do both at the same time, I would say he becomes one of those rare ones. So because of that, I thought it was something when they brought up the idea to me, you know what? I think he's deserving of it. I mean, my daughter's played soccer through the whole system here in 20 years. And, you know, he's always been somebody that I've heard, you know, that was very, you know, instrumental in supporting when there wasn't a lot of fundraising back then. And aside from all the things they mentioned in reference to the high school, dugouts, plumbing, irrigation, I mean, field of the field, I mean, it was extensive. So I think, in my opinion, he deserves of that extra little recognition. And so I think that was a good idea. Obviously, we'll hear out from the council, the rest of the council. So to call Prince Field at Douglas Orr Park. And that's
Vice
my
Mayor, if I may, I'm about to go through TSA pre-check, so, I mean, TSA, so I may not be able to talk later, so if you would allow me.
Go ahead.
Okay, and thank you, Councilman, for bringing this up. I did ask Erica to get 2 photo slides to show of where we have Doug Orr, and I knew Doug Orr personally, and, you know, he wonderful resident and certainly a very civic-minded individual who did a lot for our community, as we heard from Tom Webb and Roland Rivera. My point is this: we have him acknowledged in the Hall of Fame at the Rec Center, and if Erica, if you can put that up, very few individuals. I think there's less than a handful are on there on our Rec Center Hall of Fame because of the work that he's done. We also created Doug Orr Way. We named the street Doug Orr Way near the Doug Orr plumbing business about 3 years ago, I believe. So twice.
2019.
2019. Okay, so we have memorialized this individual who has done so much for our city. My point is this: I think that instead of, we have very limited assets. Prince Field was named Prince Field because they donated, that family, as you said, Councilman, that family, the Prince family, donated the land for Prince Field. Does it mean anything to us when we name something after someone? Or is it something that, you know, just down the road, oh, we'll rename it or we'll keep naming it? Our assets are very valuable and they're known by certain names. Stafford Park is named after an individual, unfortunately, an officer who lost his life while serving our city. I feel that the best way for us to
move forward with this kind of thing. And since I've been on the council, I can tell you I'm sorry if you're hearing the announcements from the airport. Since I've been on the council, I've had at least probably a handful of requests from family members and friends of individuals that have given a lot to our city. And we have been asked to name the rec center after them. Prince Field has been asked to be named after them. And these are different individuals since I've been on the council. And we've said no, that these areas are already named after someone, or they're already known by a certain name. We do have the Hall of Fame for them. And in the case of a recent council member, we dedicated, we had a ceremony acknowledging his contributions. We've named a street after him. And what the family chose to do is hold a tournament in their name. And I think going forward, this is a much better way to memorialize someone's achievements, is to suggest to the family, and with the support of our rec center, that a tournament, perhaps baseball or football, I'm not really sure what his favorite sport was, but that an annual tournament is held in their name, similar to for Jim Cottle, who was a former councilman and also very, very active in recreation. And for our city, the family ultimately decided to do a golf tournament in their name. That raises money to encourage more young people to use recreational facilities and have access to them. But I think that to me is more of a way of the future than just taking existing assets and, renaming them. We have acknowledged his contributions. The Hall of Fame at the rec center, if any of you go by, and Eric, I don't know if you got the pictures on there, but it's, just a few names, and that's a big deal to be on there. And naming a street after someone, that's, a certain portion of a street. I will not vote for changing the name of Prince Field. I think there's other ways to, and Mr. Orr, I know, had moved away from the city. He's, I think he was a resident of another state for several years. He made a lot of contributions to our city, and I think that there are other ways for us to work with the friends and family members on something. My suggestion is a tournament, but there could be other things.
Perhaps we can do what we've done before, I think, for other members of the community, or it could be a Douglas Orr Day by proclamation, as I think we're looking for recognition because he was such a tremendous asset, gave so much to the community. I mean, for you to give your time, I think is more valuable than money, and he's done both. So,
and Councilwoman, I'd like to say, the members that spoke, the people that spoke about Doug Orr, also, they are people that have contributed a lot to our community, And, it's unfortunately, we have very limited assets, so I don't think that it's wise to be renaming something that's already been named a certain way or known a certain way as, after someone. And I understand the emotions, that flow, but a tournament, or like you said, a proclamation of a day or something else can be done. It's a much more living acknowledgement of way to memorialize them.
I mean, I can see where we don't want to repeat recognition on city assets, which I didn't know. Thank you, Mayor, for providing that information. I did not know that he was recognized on 2 city assets already. But definitely, I want his name to be recognized, and I think it would be honorary to proclaim a Douglas Orr Day, and that way he's annually continuously, because like you said, it takes time and effort to create those tournaments, right, at the end of the day. But Councilman, if you have any feedback,
Yeah, I would be in favor of adding his name if we were gonna, and obviously there's a certain amount of decorum, right? You wouldn't have, you wouldn't have some rename the field at Stafford Park because that's a memorial of a officer that passed. So I would understand that wouldn't, I wouldn't be in favor of something like that. But if it's keeping the name Prince Field and we're adding it, I mean, and again, I think everybody has their biases. I lived my whole life in this town. I know that everybody's little league jerseys. I mean, Doug Orr was an institution, and people that I respect. I mean, I think I've been in this town a long time. I've been in this town 50 years, and you look at somebody like Tom Webb's been here like 70 plus. Right. So the few that kind of like outdate me in this town, it's people that I respect, it's people that have given to this community. And when you see people that have done that much for this community asking us to pay homage, I mean, if we were going to replace Prince Field and then it wouldn't be called Prince Field anymore, I wouldn't be in favor of it. And I understand your point. I think that it's a debatable issue, but I would be in favor of adding his name to the park.
All right, let's call the vote.
Well, you want to ask Councilman Vasquez?
Mayor is trying to talk, or is it Vasquez?
No, I think that's background noise of the mayor's. But
Mayor's back.
Councilman Vasquez? You're on mute.
Yep. Listen, I imagine he did some great things for us, and I'm in favor of that. But I'm with the mayor on this one. I think holding a tournament in his name is another way. He's got some other recognitions which are great. That's where I would be.
Oh, I'm sorry. I usually have TSA. I don't know why.
I don't know if you guys heard me over there.
we heard you,
Thank you.
Councilman. Thank you.
There's no motion. Vice Mayor, I know you asked for a vote, but no one's made a motion yet, so I think
Okay,
Councilman
let's make
Centine.
a motion.
George,
Let's
you
make
want
a
to
motion.
make the motion since you brought it up?
Motion to approve the new renaming of Prince Field at Douglas Orr Park.
Put the
Second.
wires out? Oh,
On the motion, if it passes, I think it would be best, I mean, one of the things that we'll do is we'll look at any of the donation agreements or any of the city's history that might have
Vice
any-
Mayor, excuse me, I'm going through TSA. Could I ask you to hold off on the vote until I get to the other side?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to look at the title and see if there's any restrictions or anything like that. And then, obviously if there is, we'll come back to you and let you know.
Okay.
So seconded, barring any restrictions that you find.
Okay. We're just gonna wait for the mayor to come back in.
Just vote on these for the last.
Should,
Actually,
We voted without the-
Vice Mayor, I did want to make a mention that item F, I'm going to be deferring to the next meeting,
okay,
and I didn't
Yeah.
say it at the beginning of the meeting.
I'm not here, thank you. So, Heidi,
Vice Mayor,
do you have a second?
Tackle G while we wait for her to get through TSA.
Through the chair.
Councilman,
On G, on the appointment of Miami-Dade County League of Cities Director and alternate for the 24-25 session. I would like to offer that some of my personal circumstances have changed a lot over this last year, health-wise, and it's been an honor for me to serve as a director on the League of Cities representing Miami Springs with the alternate Councilman Santeen. I would like to offer up that I would be happy to continue to serve out the term, but I would not be available to serve another term as a director or an alternate.
thank you, Councilman, and thank you for your time on serving on the League of Cities for us on behalf of the city. So did you have an appointment to make or a recommendation?
Sure, I'd like to recommend Councilman Santeen as a director, since he's been an alternate. And the other two of you, Councilwoman Bravo, maybe you would serve as an alternate. I don't think you've served, but anyway, the other one would be Councilman Fahad. And now I know he attends a lot of the meetings, even when he's not a member or a director. So that would be an overall recommendation.
Okay, so
I'm okay with it if you guys want to be director and all that.
Yeah, I'm willing to accept.
Okay. So if you guys accept and the councilman and I are in agreement, I think that's consensus on that.
So
We need a motion on that. Do we need a motion?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, motion.
Councilman.
I'll make the
Mm.
motion that for the
Go ahead.
24-25 session of the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, Councilman Santeen serve as a director and Councilman Fahet as an alternate for that session. I think that begins in a few months. Erica, you can let us know. But anyway, that's the motion.
Okay, call the vote.
Need a
Councilman
second.
Vasquez, can we have, I think you had mentioned the vice mayor as an alternate?
I did, and I saw her shaking her head as
Oh.
as I was saying it.
I mean,
So
If you only knew the amount of things I
all
want.
right, I'm already
Well-
gonna be at the meeting, so I don't mind being the alternate.
okay, so just to clarify, the motion is that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Vice
Okay,
Mayor.
in that case, I second the motion.
Okay,
Call the
motion
vote.
second.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor, are you available?
Yes, I am. I'm through TSA.
Okay.
Yes, and I vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Vice
Yeah.
Mayor, do you want to call that vote now?
Right, Mayor, we're gonna call the vote on 12D. I have a motion and a second.
Could you tell me what the motion is? I didn't hear it.
That was for Douglas Orr.
Do you want to repeat it, Councilman
It
Santeen?
was
Repeat the motion, please.
To rename Prince Field in honor of Douglas or Prince Field at Douglas or Park, pending that there's no covenants or, restrictions put in by the family or other, entities that might not allow.
Okay, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Santeen,
Yes.
Councilman Behet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez,
No.
Mayor Mitchell.
Eric, and I'm sorry, I'm clarifying it. The vote, the motion is to name the field Prince Field at Doug Orr Park or Doug Orr Park at Prince Field, right?
Correct, pending any restrictions or legal review.
Okay, my vote's no.
Okay, the motion carries 3-2.
All right, so we're moving on to 12E. Request by Councilman Santeen.
Bring this request to discuss pedestrian safety around the circle. And, hopefully we can come to consensus directing city manager and staff to pursue, recommendations and solutions to actually help with the pedestrian safety and mobility. This all kind of goes and ties together with the even parking. I think walkability, connectability to our central business district or our downtown circle is getting more and more used, and important that we consider their safety. I see it all the time. I'm in the farmer's market and a lot frequently, and I'm seeing families trying to cross over with strollers. And it's just going to get, to think that 51 units, 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms are not going to have children, middle-aged kids. What's the natural thing that these kids are going to do? I did it when I was young, is look for a place to go play. And now I'm not saying that you want to encourage people to go there, but that's the reality. We have a park. It's called a city park, Glenn Curtis Circle Park. These kids are going to try to cross over, no matter, so don't go over there. No, they're going to go over there. So considering that we are conscious that this is going to happen, more people are going to have an attraction to go into our circle. We got this memorial, both the World War I and possibly World War I and the current one with the veterans. We're going to have a lot more visitors into our downtown area. So I just think that something that we need to address first is pedestrian safety. And I think we could push through our contacts, city commissioners, senators, representatives, who also are very concerned about pedestrian traffic and safety. I mean, that's probably the mission statement of most transportation departments. So just leave it to the county directors and just say that we're not going to do anything because our whole mission is to get one person from the other side of the bridge to the other. It's, I'm sorry, but uncalled for and unacceptable. So there's ways of doing it. We could do, elevated crosswalks. And that kind of slows down, calms down traffic. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not saying to have nobody come over from the other side. We're just saying that when you cross over, you need to make sure that the pedestrians are safe. And if it causes them a headache, well, I'm sorry, safety comes first. Also, there's ways of doing reflective markers, that you see on the street. There's a section where the police chief, if he was here, he would tell you where most of the accident or most of the concern is. They're pretty much going at a speed from one left lane to the right when they're not supposed to. Well, they can easily put some markers, the reflective ones, so they kind of almost gear them. I'm not saying that it's going to stop them. It's not a mark. It's not a cone, but it's enough to at least, make an effort to try to get this thing a little bit more safe. And so that's my ultimate thing, is just to try to see how we can put the pressure at the at the county level to ease pedestrian traffic into our downtown, because that's what we were trying to encourage. It's the whole walkability, use, and the viability of this area. And the only way we can do it is by at least getting, the pedestrians safely from one place to the other, including Westward Drive. I mean, I know people think it's crazy, but if we could get crossover to the circle, connects to the rest of the downtown, you might actually stop those cars from speeding from one side to the other, because now they have no choice but to respect a crosswalk with signs that are giving you indication of pedestrians. So I just want a huge effort. I know I'm going to do my part on the sidelines, but I want, recommendations from the staff and city manager on what we can do to better this, and then try to get a team effort to get it accomplished.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I spoke on this the last time when we were talking about, and I know Councilman Santina has been a voice for this for some time now, that pedestrian safety of people crossing the circle to get to the park or vice versa, to get to the other side, it has been a serious control. I drive through the circle all the time and see the different things that people trying to cross there. And also, what prompted me to speak on this the last time was the increasing parking, paver parking on the east side of Curtis Parkway, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And I said at that time, you increase it to parking. I think the mayor said something like 50 parking spots, including the ones we already have on Curtis Parkway. Those people are going to walk towards the center of the city along the pathway that we already have. I think this merits some discussion, some level. I don't have answers to how to go about this, but I have seen quite a few people trying to cross there. The cars that are driving westward towards the circle, they're watching the people that are coming around the circle to see if they could jump out there. And I don't think they're looking or see the pedestrians that may be crossing. So I think this is an important issue to take up conversation to begin, right? Of how we can do this. And I know the county has issues about this as well, but I think one life is too precious not for us to consider this. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman Fahim.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to chime in, and I certainly appreciate the sentiments. I'm just thinking about it differently. I'm all in favor of increasing walkability, particularly, as a matter of fact, the idea that was floated in the Economic Development Task Force, right? About widening the sidewalks on Westward Drive and adding parking and I know that not everybody agrees with it, but it was the idea of like maybe making those last 2 blocks of Westward one lane and increasing walkability there. I'm all in favor of that because that's where the restaurants are. I don't think that at this moment we should be encouraging more walking to the circle because there's really, other than a gazebo, there's really nothing there. And then you're walking them through traffic, not to mention, we don't know. So everybody knows that that traffic gets really hectic in terms of traffic. As a matter of fact, when we were talking about parking, somebody had even floated the idea of having like parking in the circle, which I thought was kind of crazy because then you'd be backing up into a roundabout. But supposedly everybody in that parking garage of the One Curtis Parkway has to exit that parking garage and turn right turn only back into the circle, which is going to be adding more traffic into an already chaotic area. I think that the best way that we can keep people safe is by not trying to encourage people to walk through the traffic of the circle and through the circle to get to the areas where the shops are. They should walk around, and we should try to make that safer. But and not to mention, I've seen when there's something happening at the circle, when they haven't closed the circle down for traffic, that you're driving behind somebody and people are rubbernecking, looking to see what's happening inside the circle, which makes it unsafe then for motorists. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that I think that right now we need to see what is going to happen in that circle once we get 51 units filled with residents. We may find that you've got, like you said, kids running, up and down and jumping into the gazebo. We may find that the traffic is so horrendous, and I just making the circle more accessible for pedestrians means that you are going to just lock up traffic even more around the circle. And I just have a lot of concerns about what traffic around the circle is even going to look like once you have all these people and everybody having to, like, anybody coming out of that parking garage, supposedly, as per the plan, they can't turn left to go to CVS to Hialeah. They got to turn right and go into the circle, go around the circle and come back around to get on Hook Square to go to Hialeah. I would caution us to just wait and see what's going to happen there and not encourage pedestrian traffic to walk through the circle to get to all of the places that we're trying to promote. Because I really have concerns about what's going to happen traffic wise there. Like to me, I feel like there's a lot of question marks, and I wouldn't want us to make decisions until we kind of have a better sense of what's going to happen.
All right, I have Rogelio Madan that signed up to speak about this item. Thank you, Councilman Fayed.
So, yeah, I think you can either have a highway or you can have a main street. And I think this needs to be our main street. And I think the traffic that's going through the circle is not intending to come to Miami Springs. They're cutting through our community from Hialeah, going to the airport or wherever they work in Doral, as opposed to using Milam Dairy Road or using Lejeune Road. And so right now it's designed as a highway. It's designed to go fast. And this needs to be our main street. And it should be designed for the traffic that's going through. I'm not saying they can't come here, but they need to drive slowly and respect our city. And Florida's #1 for pedestrian deaths. Dade County is probably #4 in this state. I think we're not as bad as Orlando and Tampa. And that's because of the way our roadways are designed. They are designed to move cars quickly. And we have a main street that, instead of being designed for us, for the residents of Miami Springs, is being designed to move cars from Hialeah to the airport. And I think it needs to be redesigned. We need to look at it. I think creating tabled crosswalks would be a great idea to force cars to slow down a little bit as they come into the neighborhood, because one day there's going to be a kid crossing the street, going to get nailed by a car coming in quickly from Hialeah, and and we shouldn't have that on our conscience. That shouldn't be the way the city is designed. So pedestrian safety is paramount. Saturday, I ran into you at the farmer's market, and I had an appointment to get a haircut at the spot. There's no legal crosswalk to cross from the farmer's market to the spot. If I wanted to do that legally, I would have to go south, cross over to the block where the new Jimmy John's and the gym is, and then cross north to go to the spot. There's no way to get there. if you're in one of these new buildings and you want to legally cross to go into the circle, you need to go all the way around Curtis Parkway on the north side by Papa John's and then cross again and then cross into the circle. Or you need to go the other way around, cross it to the street to go to where the Jimmy John's in, then cross again and then cross north and then cross north and cross north and cross when it's something that's right there. It doesn't make sense when you have simple pedestrian paths available to have to go all the way around. And so we really, I think if we want this Main Street to be successful, we really need to look at slowing the traffic down. There's traffic because cars are cutting through. If we disincentivize cars' ability to cut through, they'll find another route. They'll go somewhere else. Once again, if you build it, they will come. If this is designed as a highway, people will come and use it as a highway.
I mean,
So-
you brought up a good point. If you have to cross and cross and cross, now you're exposing the pedestrian even more. So I
Yeah.
think, I don't know what, city manager.
If you, wait for
Yeah,
you.
no, absolutely. I was gonna ask you, I don't know, because I don't like to cross through there. I do know that there's like two, but where actually do we have it? It's just two places. I think it should be a
No.
consecutive thing that's happening around this.
Yeah, as a result of the parking study, I started taking a look at the entire business area and circle, and you look at it, and we're trying to create additional parking on Curtis Parkway. So I was looking at it from parking. If I park my car there and I close my door and I want to go eat, so you can cross into the circle from Curtis, right, from where the parking is going to be, or is some parking. You cross in there. There's a crosswalk that has the lights flashing, but then you can't go anywhere else once you're in the circle. You have to go back and leave. In order to get to the restaurants, we would need another crosswalk. Same thing with Westwood Drive. You can't get really to the circle from Westwood Drive without really playing Frogger and taking your life into your hands. So the question is, and I have a meeting coming up with Commissioner Cabrera, and I was going to talk about the possibility of seeing if the county would consider it, because we have to go through the county and see where that goes, because I walked it and it's kind of dangerous. And in addition to that, this was one that actually one of the local business owners brought up. There's on Curtis Parkway on the side where you have Paco's Way, there's a crosswalk there that has the flashing lights that you can cross over to the Starbucks side. But when you go further, I guess, towards Hialeah to the bridge, there's another crosswalk there. It's stamped I think it's stamped asphalt, colored asphalt, right by where the bar and grill is gonna go, and then Apple Dental's on the other side, and there's gonna be parking that we're gonna encourage people to park in on Canal Street. There, that's a dangerous crosswalk there, because there's no flashing lights, and you have the people coming in from Hialeah at a pretty good clip. I mean, I park when I come in the mornings, I go to Starbucks sometimes, and I mean, it takes me a while to back out of there because their cars are just
Going fast,
flying.
Do we have flashing lights there for slowdown coming into Miami Springs?
No,
You got to press the button.
No, incoming traffic from Hialeah.
Oh, no.
from the
No.
back
Not the
where
bridge.
Honestly, I wouldn't like a crosswalk there. I think that's the worst place to have a crosswalk. I'd come in a little bit more, but
A warning at least.
Somebody brought up the idea. You have people coming out of the bar and grill, maybe
yeah,
a little inebriated,
tipsy,
and
it
then
is what it is.
going to their car and maybe taking a wrong step. So it's just one of those things that I want to explore. If the council is okay with it, I will pursue it. If they say don't waste your time, I'll waste my time. But I think it's worth a question. Especially, I'm just looking forward ahead. Just looking ahead for the parking and the overall, the overall business district.
Look, I think we had one of the residents here on the workshop, and she even mentioned that she's willing to park, from some distance and walk. But of course, if you go to one restaurant on Westwood Drive and all of a sudden you want to go get something else, you're going to go get your car and you're going to move, because that's not so friendly to get there. If not, they would have left the car on Westwood Drive, then maybe had a lot more space. So it all kind of ties together. But at the end of the day, like we just mentioned, one person, we save one kid's life, one person's life. It's enough. I'm willing to fight it. And I think that, you know what? Put their feet to the fire. If not, you tell that director from that county road, say, I want your name on this paper.
So I think I'd
So
like,
get the county commissioner people in there. That's what we need.
it's just, I don't know when your meeting is with Commissioner Cabrera.
You have to check.
I don't know if there's any, if I can be a part of that meeting, if there's no sunshine issue.
Actually, the mayor is already, she kind of
Okay,
made contact, and so she's gonna be in that meeting.
perfect. I think where I would like to see, I understand Councilman Fahad's concerns. I mean, you put more accessibility to bodies, but at the end of the day, they're gonna do it anyways. People are gonna walk across anyways. So I'd rather just, I'm surprised that the county, when they laid out the circle, they didn't take into consideration connecting the dots. I mean, I would, right? So I'd like to see, I don't know if I could.
I
call
can
this a-
speak to that. I can speak to that. When the county, and I think I mentioned this last meeting, the circle, you know, we had 3-lane circle, 3 lanes of traffic. When it was proposed that we make a crosswalk to the circle, and it was 2 young residents who proposed it, you know, to make the circle accessible as a park, to that we make a crosswalk there. And because it's a county road, the circle is a county road. It's east to west Curtis Parkway. You know, those are all county roads or state roads, I guess, but the county owns that one. And it was proposed that we have a pedestrian crosswalk to the circle. That's what we wanted. In making a pedestrian crosswalk to the circle, and I have no problem with this, I thought it was great, we lost a lane because you cannot cross safely 3 lanes of traffic. And the circle in the county, looking at the circle, which is their circle, they said it doesn't meet the current state, you know, roads have certain state statutes, designs, they're not statutes, but designs, so that it's consistent that, and the reason for that makes sense, that if I drive from here into Hialeah to Miami Lakes, pretty much I can expect the road to be similar, to have similar design, similar traffic stops, you know, the lights and everything else. You know, it's not like, oh, now I'm in this city, I have, you know, everything changes. So there's a certain design for a circle. Because the circle was so old, it didn't meet that current design. And to make it accessible, to make a pedestrian crossing, one of the things was you cannot cross through 3 lanes of traffic. So that's why the lane was reduced. To me, I think it looks much better. I think it was a great idea. There was so much flack from the community because why can't we just build a pedestrian crossing? And, you know, why do we have to get rid of, you can't do that. You can't make a pedestrian crossing. You know, this isn't l'Arc de Triomphe in France. So just keep that in mind. And I'm all for pedestrian and bicycle safety. You know, that's prime for me. So any way we can encourage, promote, make it, you know, facilitate more people walking and riding bikes and just being outdoors, especially in Miami Springs, I'm all for it. But I do think when we're talking about, well, we want them to do this and we want them to do that, every action that we want them to do may be possible, but there may be substantial other actions that are necessary and to make that possible. And that ultimately comes down to the design, roadway design. And you know, we're talking about liability. One of the biggest things with liability is that you want to be consistent with what was required, you know, not I rigged it or I changed it or this isn't the actual design. We made it a little bit different because then we are liable.
Through the chair. Well, considering those 2 ladies did what they did, this has been done. It's already there. The two roads that caused the change because it wasn't conforming is now there. So to add the crosswalks, they do not need to take any more lanes off. The damage was already done. If you want to call it damage, I don't think it's damage at all. But it was
Councilman,
done because
I'm sorry,
there's no 3 lanes there anymore. Pardon me, but there's no 3 more lanes.
Councilman, let me, I meant to answer that and I got off track. The reason that at that time, and this was, I think 2020 around when it was, you know, being proposed. And unfortunately, those 2 ladies that designed it, they got so much flack, you know, they kind of like, you know, from the community of whose idea was this. It's ultimately, nobody likes change, like I've said, but nobody likes things the way they are either. So, you know, we have to move forward with what we think is reasonable and good for the community. But one of the things at that time, when we wanted another crosswalk into the Starbucks area, the county at that time said they wouldn't provide it because there wasn't another means to provide safe access of, and the reason that the crosswalk was placed where it was is because the cars have ample time to kind of make the circle and slow down, and most of them are going on Curtis. As they're coming from Hialeah, most of them are going on Curtis, not going around the circle. So there in itself, that route makes it so that there's less vehicles right before the pedestrian crossing. And those are all things that they take into account. And I may not be explaining it well, but in essence, what you're doing is there's a break there of if 20 cars are coming in from the bridge, most of those 20 cars are continuing on Curtis before they get to the pedestrian crossing. But if the pedestrian crossing were put over toward westward, the pedestrians would be subjected to those 20 cars coming in at one time. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining it well. And those are all factors that they have to take into account to make it safe, because ultimately what we want is, you know, safety and accessibility, but we want to make sure that if we have a pedestrian crosswalk, that it really is a safe way for, you know, for people to cross it. So this is just more conversations that'll have to be taken with the county. I just want to prepare everyone that it's not, you know, create one lane here or there. Every action may take a lot of other actions that we may like, we may not, but that's fine. If we decide this is what we want, this is what we want. We'll pursue it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'm just gonna, nobody here is promoting the endangerment of children, right? Like, that's not what we're talking about.
No.
The discussion item says to have recommendations and solutions to help increase pedestrian safe mobility to the circle. There isn't anything at the circle other than a gazebo. It's nice when there's not a lot of traffic. Yep, I've walked across, right? But right now, what we did was we created a crosswalk by the Cavalier Clock that's not at a natural place where cars stop. Cars are stopping because someone's crossing. Whereas on Westwood Drive and leading up, you have a crosswalk that's just before you get to a stop sign or a yield sign, but in the roundabout, they have the right of way. Stopping cars or trying to cross where there's no reason for the cars to even slow down, because the only thing that would require them to slow down is the crosswalk, I don't think is the best course of action. If you're at the farmer's market and you need to go to the spot, there's a light at Hook Square. You could cross there. Maybe I'm not against crosswalks to increase the walkability, to make it more accessible. I don't think that going through the circle as the fastest way from point A to point B is the right way to do it. I think that we should try to think about where we can put crosswalks to help things more accessible, but do it in places where cars are naturally already slowing down because they're about to enter a roundabout where they have to yield because the people in the roundabout have the right of way. If we like in Hollywood Beach, they have like a giant circle that or like St. John's Circle in Fort Myers. This is a circle that had a whole bunch of things in there. Like, obviously you're bringing people in, but right now, and again, I'm open to the discussion, but we're going to increase traffic. I understand what Rogelio's saying, right? Like, do you want this to be a highway? Yeah, but like the traffic is coming because there's 51 2 and 3 bedroom units that are going to be online in a couple of months. And all of those people are being forced to drive their cars through that circle. So that's just increasing the amount of traffic. And I think we should just be cautious, see how things are going to work. If we already have a meeting with the county, let's talk about crosswalks. I mean, at the end of the day, it's their road anyways, but we have a crosswalk that crosses a street. I don't think that that was the best place to put that crosswalk. It's there and it leads into basically a dead end because it leads into the circle and there's no way out of it. I think that we should increase walkability of around the circle to get to all the different places that we want people to go. I just would caution us from, again, and maybe that's the broader point of what you're trying to make. I appreciate the discussion, but when I read this and it says increase pedestrians to the circle, I don't feel like we, right now, until we know what's going to happen when One Curtis Parkway gets up and running, I don't think that we should be promoting more people going into the circle. I think that we should increase walkability around to help get to the restaurants. That's my only concern. I think that we should be cautious. Doesn't mean that I'll always be against it. I just think that we should wait and see how things are going to look.
To the chair, yeah, and I mean, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, maybe it was just the way it was written, but it's circled connectability to the rest of the district. But the circle obviously plays a part in that walkability, but obviously not just to that point as a point of end.
Right.
But yes, as a main point to get to these places, it's something that's going to happen. And I just still think it's going to happen naturally. And it's going to be unavoidable. So, you know,
I think there
it
should.
takes time
yeah.
to get these things done. So it's like they just mentioned, these things don't happen that easy as much as they have now. I think quick, maybe Rogelio will know, quick build methods to try to get these things done a little quicker so it won't go through all the tape. It still takes time. So
yeah.
I like to see the more pedestrian friendly going around the circle, not necessarily into the circle. I love the circle. I love the greenery. I like that it's a spot that you can expect it overall to be calm. I can perhaps walk there at one point, read a book, get maybe some fresh air at not so traffic hours. But when I mentioned the other day that we had kids out there playing with footballs and I was driving, I was scared that the football may hit my car and then we'll cause an influx of a triple effect of accidents. I love the idea of more of the pedestrian friendly connecting around so that we could get
Right.
from both the north and south side
Right.
so that we can access those restaurants. And then let's leave it like a free for all right now. I mean, at the end of the day, it's play at your own risk. And I know what you're trying to say in the safety. But I've been here for 30 years all my life, and I never thought to really go to the park to play because I always knew the cars were dangerous. So I don't know if I wouldn't want to attract more traffic to hang out in their circle because I think that's what's going to happen. If you get pedestrians to access the circle in the park, they may be inclined to hang out, to play, so my concern really is the external obsolescence that it can create with the traffic, which will cause another safety issue. But yes, I agree that we should go ahead and look at more pedestrian friendly around the circle because we need it. If not, the restaurants and everything that's coming, they're probably going to suffer, to be honest. And to get the kids safely around too, because if they're going to, let's say they want to go, they're going to go, but if they want to go and enjoy those surrounding areas, at least now, kids alike, both elderly, both people our age of all different ages can walk. Because I'm seeing here, we do have one crosswalk and one that's not even here. So it's like, so, I mean, they're going to meet with Cabrera. Let's see what they bring back. But we need to add something. It can't stay like that, is what you're saying.
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, besides obviously pedestrian traffic, to me is to discourage people to come through this area that needs to be for the business.
You got a toll.
Main Street, no toll, just, you know, if it comes, you know, happens in Hollywood, if you're going into those or Miracle Mile, whatever it is, you're going through there, you know that you're going to have traffic at a certain time. But most of the people are looking for places to stay there. So, I mean, to go a bit to patronize. So why? I'm just trying to.
Pull what we can get,
I'm
because
trying
right
to
now the
slow
way
it
is, it's
down
bad.
more, slow it down as much as possible. And I know the DOT and county roads, their whole mission is to get you to be, and they really don't care how you get from the other place. But I do.
Through
I'm
the
just
chair.
worried about locking up. I'm sorry, Victor. I'll be done in a second. Then you can go.
Sure.
I worry about locking up the traffic more when we are uncertain about how bad it's going to get locked up when you've got that entire building emptying into the circle. I get it. Like slow it down, but then like what's gonna happen? Like a lot of uncertainty right now. I'd rather kind of wait and see. But I think theme of the day is let JC have a crack at it. He's going to be talking to the county. Let's give him a crack at it.
Councilman Fahed, we'll close out with you.
Oh, that's okay. I'll take that as a compliment. Councilman Fahed. Listen, we just to add, llover sobre lo mojado. There are two. The circle, the circle and Curtis Parkway. The design of the streets is one way on the west side of it and another way on the east side of it. As Walter was saying earlier, you get from you're at where the clock is. I think it's kind of relatively easy to cross Curtis Parkway. There's a stop sign there, but once you get to the other side, there is no sidewalk or routine way to get across South Royal. You got traffic that backs up by the bridge to get to that side of the circle, as opposed to the other side where you do have a crosswalk on North Royal over to the sandwich shop. Then you can cross westward, right? And you could even cross from westward to Curtis Parkway. It's a different configuration of traffic flow. And just another thing to be thought about, but just to throw it in there, because it is quite different to go to that side of the circle than to come back around to the westward side.
To the chair. One of the points that why I'm bringing this up in reference to the Westward Drive is because you just mentioned the crosswalk from Papa John's to Curtis Parkway or to the center where the clock is at. This is where I saw most people trying to cross over, but those cars are going so fast from the Starbucks to there.
Yes.
That it's late almost sometimes. So
Yeah, you're
my whole
absolutely
point is to try to make it, to slow it down, make it more difficult for them to pick up the speed. Obviously, a crosswalk will do it. They have no choice. This thing is flashing lights on. They're not going to be able to take off from Ponciana or the Starbucks where they start to just put speed. Even getting to the one that connects from Curtis to the circle, believe it or not, unless you press that button, that thing is not notifying that your pedestrian is about to cross up. And those cars at that point are going so fast that, believe me, there's good chances that you could get run over there. So my whole point is to try to slow that area. To me is the most dangerous thing. And they have done nothing to save the pedestrians in general, even from the crosswalks that they approved, because they allowed an area where you can go pretty fast. And that's my point.
So
Slow it down.
city manager will report back to you with the findings from Cabrera's office.
I think we're already going to consensus this, that we're going to allow the city manager to take the steps, and
It's worth a discussion. I am looking, I just out of curiosity, I logged on, I did the Google Maps, and you can see crosswalks all the way around. I mean, they're not with flashing lights, and they may be dangerous to cross on those crosswalks, but there are crosswalks that connect all the way around the circle. Like I think it's Rogelio mentioned, he ended up going out of the way to get to the Spot Barbershop, but there is connectivity. So the county may, the county may come back to me and say there is connectivity, but
so how, but the speed is the problem.
yeah,
Jason.
no, I agree.
They're going 30, 40 miles per hour.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna have the discussion with them. But I'm trying to take a look.
I think I'll show you afterwards. There's a crosswalk on Hook Square, but you have to go further east towards the Barry's Cleaner and then go across and then come back. But people stop at that light when they're not blocking the box at 5 o'clock, but they stop, well before the Barry's Cleaner. Maybe a crosswalk there so that you're going straight to the Adventist property and not having to go a little bit further. I mean, it's also a county road.
Yeah.
They're
Look, it's worth a conversation if that's okay with you guys, and see
I
how we
think,
can
I would, look, I think what we need to do, and I'm about to board the plane. I think what we need to do is let the county know, along with the other things that we're gonna talk about, because this isn't what we're having the meeting for, but we can certainly bring it up. Is that we want increased pedestrian safety, at the circle. We have more people coming in and we have restaurants and we want them to, their, traffic engineering group which is Public Works, Transportation and Public Works, to look at the circle, revisit it, and improve the pedestrian accessibility throughout the area, throughout that area.
Perfect. All right, so we're on agreement to just check back with city managers to see what reports he has for us, and we can improve the circle. So we're gonna go to reports and recommendations. Our city attorney.
Vice Mayor, Mayor, have a safe flight. And council, I just want to thank you for your vote of confidence this evening. It is, as I've said, always, it really is my firm's pleasure and mine to serve the city. And as you know, I always give credit where it's due. I really want to thank Roger Poe from my office, who over the last year filled in significantly while I was on maternity leave. And the rest of the Weiss Serota team, we really do appreciate the city and all of you. We're happy to work with our new manager and our continued staff, and all of the Miami Springs team to make Miami Springs really, you guys have a vision. This council is really moving forward and we're really excited to be a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot considering that you've seen many councils come through. City manager.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. The golf course is getting near to opening. We're looking at it later on in this month in March. I do have a meeting this week with the architect and staff over there just to make sure that I'm okay with announcing that date. So I will be providing you with a date once I have that, once I feel certain that it's gonna open up on that date. Also, speaking of the golf course, I received, in speaking with the director, Paul Odell, today, he informed me that he will be retiring come April 24th. So I just wanted to let you know that. I'll begin the search for his replacement immediately. The Veterans Memorial, we received the bids. Fortunately, it was one bid, and it did come in significantly higher than the budgeted amount. So I'm going to be reviewing that and, speaking with our attorney, see if I can negotiate with that one bidder and say, hey, what's happening here? But I just want to let you know that, give you an update on that you won't be seeing that contract coming to you for approval just yet. I wanted to announce that the Easter egg hunt is on Saturday, March 30th at 10 a.m. And for tickets, call the community center. And the Easter egg drop as well. Call the community center to have them come and drop Easter eggs at your house. And that's my update.
All right, and we'll start with Councilman Fahed.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Erica and Heidi. You guys are great and are well deserving of the vote of confidence. And thank you to all of you. I think that we come here and we talk about kind of knotty issues and we find solutions, and proud to be a part of it.
All right, Councilman Vasquez.
Yes, just two quick things. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Councilman.
Okay, just want to show you the result of my surgery last week on my right hand. This is why I decided to stay home today. It's still a little sore, and it'll be a total of 6 weeks for complete recovery. That's in stages. And they did some arthroscopic, work on there on my thumb. And and to second, Councilman Fahed and Heidi, great, thank you for your gracious comment. I do feel that we've got a team here of folks that, we go at it and we're passionate about it and we disagree and we agree a lot and we find, most importantly, a lot of common ground, which Councilman Fahed asked us to consider in his opening prayer. So I'm really proud of you guys, and hope to see you in 2 weeks on the dais.
Council,
I think Councilman Fayette and Councilman Vasquez has said it well. I'm fortunate, considering this is my rookie year, to work with such a great group. So I'm a happy camper. Thank you.
You're rookie All-American. Joyce.
Yeah, I
Rookie of the
mean,
year.
my rookie moments were great up here. I don't know. The good thing is you come in as a rookie, you don't really know what's going on, so you just like trickle through and amazingly things get done. And nobody's hitting you with a hammer because you're a rookie.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, I just want to thank the staff and my council for a very productive meeting. Thank you for the residents and community members that came out to discuss very important items, especially people with so much talent and knowledge, and hanging out with us.
Yeah.
I hope we made you happy. I was going to just say congratulations to Sergeant Gary Fetters on his retirement and the other police officers that got their promotions. And I hope everybody has a very good night, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Meeting adjourned.